Okay, hello, welcome everybody. Today plan, we will play some aliens at the beginning and also on the end. And somewhere in the middle we will try how the StarCraft will go today. I got bad feeling about that, but we will see. We will have like few days, like 2-3 days pause from Hero to the Storm because I'm so angry on that game. So anyway, welcome on stream and I hope we can enjoy it. Okay, what I got? I need to change this scope, tactical scope. Replace, not replace. Okay, what's the work as a gunner? Okay. The only way to be sure. Complete any, the only that's cool. Eliminate 30 elite synthetics. Okay. This will take like 2 days. So which one we want to go? We will try luck.
We are now officially on search and rescue. Blue team made it through Katanga's last security since, but once they reached the Xeno Hive, they dropped out of radio contact. You're going in to find them.
Okay, we'll wait for a moment and we will see if somebody will join. If not, we will restart game because sometimes it's a little bit buggy from the beginning.
Endeavor's tracking large movements of xenomorphs from Pala Station to a canyon 50 clicks south. It could be something drew their attention, or they could be starting a second hive. We are now officially on search and rescue. Blue team made it through Katanga's last security since, but once they reached the Xeno Hive, they dropped out of radio contact. You're going in to find them.
So this is the last weapon that I need to have on 4 stars. I got all of them. I don't want to level the flamethrowers because they have no use in this difficulty what I'm playing. It's like friendly fire. 1 to 3. Friendly fire is a real thing. And then we will try this Grupa. I saw some new modding on Grupa today, and it looks very good, and especially with Gunner. That looks quite good. I like phalanx. It's not my favorite category, but it's okay. My top 3 is Demolisher on the first place, Raccoon on the second, and Gunner on the third. And also Doctor is good. It is Suppression Station, or how it's called. Oh. Let's go.
Look, flares on the deck. Follow them. Molina's blue fire team passed this way.
Okay, need to play safe today. Yesterday it was like I was like so greedy.
Here we go.
Oh no. Why? Why they? Why overclock?
Hey, check this.
What? Check this, you're doing only when you see this prowler, or how it's called.
You're in their house. They could come from any direction.
Okay, so we take no damage. That's good at the beginning.
So, be paranoid. If you see something, shoot something.
Well, it's also good. I don't like this burst fire, but it's quite strong. Oh, it sounds like pulse rifle, which is good. Right, one behind. They are a little bit bugged, this. Well, okay, we got also discarded. We got like
Could be anywhere.
higher damage by 35%, so okay.
Body on the deck.
Look at this. Get eyes on this.
Corporal Delahaye. Grab her tags.
Rearming. Check this out.
Check this out.
Rearming.
Descansen paz. Still two out there.
Okay. So I don't know if Phalanx is my favorite, but Lancer is better. But okay. Okay. And we got double overclock, so that's cool. But they will come also from behind, so we need to be careful. Overclock is like the most powerful thing in the game. Like, okay, rockets with demolishers are also cool, but this overclock is very strong. And when you have like, when you are gunner and two demolishers, that's a lot of bullets fired. It's much more better with this scope. This burst rifle. Like this, replacing this aim with this full scope is not very good for this game. Like, for me, you know. Why are you doing this? Like, why? Thank you. Okay, but I stay in front. Okay, in front of him.
I got you.
No. Ah, I don't have ammunition, that's not good.
Aid kit's here. Grabbing ammo.
Clear. Keep moving. Door's welded. Cut it. We know Blue Fire Team went this way. Almost I shoot him at the face.
You see this?
All over the walls. New signal. Watch its attacks.
Check this out.
Oh no. That's not good. No, 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 no.
Rearming.
Mm-hmm. I should also go for rearming.
Anyone need gear?
Movement on the walls! Get out of the core before more wake up. Blue Fire Team, we have friendly seeking you. Light 'em up! Clear. S, you got anything?
Katanga's critical systems are on the lower decks. If the Blue Fire Team continue to pursue their objective, we would have laid below.
I'll get those bastards for this.
Ambush! Suppressive fire now!
Yeah. Oh no, here.
We keep bleeding these pendejos, will they burn a hole at the bottom of the hull?
Unlikely. Hive resin is acid resistant.
But we can't go back. That's not good. I need to save granites for the queen, for the drone.
Rearming.
Contact forward!
Grabbing ammo.
Keep moving, fire team. Flares go across the catwalks. Keep on them.
The console nearby is active. Please patch me in.
Rearming. Aid kit's here.
Grabbing ammo.
Accessing. Stand by.
Look at this.
Semper Fi.
Watch it!
Hold off the Xenos!
We got this. Let's get some. We got this. Semper Fi.
Yeah. Oh no, what?
Frag the warrior!
Charging the deck.
Praetorian.
Don't worry, it's just a flesh wound.
No what? How we can get here?
Analysis complete.
Grabbing ammo.
Blue team used this console to disable the capacitor safeties.
They're still in the fight. They'd be headed to the core lift next. Xenos, closing!
Rearming.
Fire team, are you out there? One door's welded. Blue team went that way. Cut it.
I'll cut it.
Xenos, behind!
Yeah.
PDT, close. Blue team, sing out!
Thanks, buddy. I'll get those bastards for this.
Patching up.
Private Brzezinski. Dios te guarde. Molina's close. Get her home. Shag it, fire team!
I have a return on the final PDT. It isn't that blue.
Okay, with one health it's not very optimistic, but like one slice of banana can be deadly for me now with this one health. Guys, I think you will be clever and you will let me one.
Don't
Okay.
worry, it's just a flesh wound. Aid kit's here. Grabbing ammo.
Aid kit's here.
Lance Corporal Molina.
And where we are in this scenario, where we are hiding. I did not play this map for such a long time. Here? Or where we are?
Let's get some. Stay frosty. We got this.
I think here, no?
Sentry deployed.
Just activated it. Cool.
We're so close. One fucking hallway.
Sentry deployed.
Overhead!
So,
Sentry gun
Queen
ready.
Bee can die. He got like last life. Don't know. You will use this overclock only on drones or Praetorians. Okay. Careful for friendly fire. They're coming!
Down below! Enviarnos al infierno!
Like very good accuracy got this gun also. But I'm looking forward for group up because I saw this new modding and it looked very interesting. But we need to have this gun on 4 stars.
They called in a Praetorian!
nothing. We are doing nothing. Okay, we need this.
Fucked around, you found out.
Don't go now for ammo.
Grabbing ammo.
We are going now for ammo. That guy also needs to go. He's not enough for another Praetorian.
Danger! High voltage!
Thank you guys, thank you very much.
Rearming. Grabbing ammo.
I got
No,
you.
no, 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 how I can disturb it? Oh, thank you now.
Sentry deployed.
No, Peter also. Fuck, we need to kill him. He will kill us, not the... Oh, sorry! I'm shooting him, not you. He's dead.
I need some help here!
But where I am?
Let's bring it back to
Okay. Almost, but there is a spitter.
incoming.
Okay. He's dead, but I think this is like...
Rearming.
Fire team, we got updated orders. With blue team down, we're taking over point on this op.
Yeah, okay.
You're going to scuttle
Just,
this fucking shitbox. You put the core in an override loop. That means going all the way to the bottom, the heart of the nest.
Great thing. Okay, well, let's see what fell off the back of the power loader.
Listen up. Another fire team got KIA'd with their mission incomplete. I'm assembling a scratch team to finish their task. That's you. You'll get more information when you hit dirt.
Here comes the fun part. We'll be visible for 140 clicks during re-entry, and we can't juke. Cynthia's final orders were to prepare Acid Zero, the alien ship, for activation.
Activated for what?
Nothing good. Fire team, get aboard and stop it.
Pathogen jars.
They dangerous?
Only if opened. We couldn't dent the casing.
Signal's closing! Error unknown. What the fuck were those?
What the
I
fuck
guess
are
pathogen
those?
mutations of some native life form.
What?
No, they... People! Doc, I really hope that wasn't nobody you knew.
But we didn't even know Wayland had a team down here.
Okay, so we need to be spread. Okay. Oh fuck, I need to go there.
Mierda, there's an assload of them!
See this?
But we don't have enough ammunition. Because this map is like very ammo heavy.
Secure. The alien ship should be just ahead.
Station ready.
Dispatching this to Earth seems ill-advised.
¿Qué coño?
Remain calm. Merely a scan.
For what?
Insufficient data, but it appears you passed.
Alright, how can we stop this thing? Options, people.
Cynthia's remnants are likely to have a control center.
Get eyes on this. Check this out.
Who wants the gear?
It will be the stalker now.
Pathogen chiggers, lots of them.
You see this?
bolts off. There's likely more weird critters.
Rearming. Grabbing ammo.
I got you. Rearming. 8 kids here. Grabbing ammo.
Guess the mutants don't like synths.
Might you access that one's short-term memory?
Signal's closing. Something's coming. Signal's fuzzy.
Leon!
I got you. Watch it.
Rearming. It's just a flesh wound.
Rearming. 8 kids here. Grabbing ammo. Patching up.
Grabbing ammo.
Rearming.
Synth memory
Nice.
intact.
Grenade kit.
Extracting navigation
Rearming.
data.
The Leon Stalker.
All right.
That was native life. Big cat with chameleon abilities. Watch for the shimmer. They blend, but not perfectly. Jesus. Wayland moved all the pathogen here.
Willem.
Storage. For transport to labs in the
Willem
core.
Litani.
Hijo de puta. I know an ammo magazine when I see one.
Analysis complete. The synths are working from a location on the upper levels.
Then we keep heading up. Cynthia left a hologram on in here. Incoming, both sides!
Ready.
Attention. Power gravity drive equilibrium in progress. Capacitors charging. Objective. Mutagen sample returned. Priority 1. Off the priority symbol.
Workstation ready.
More of those abominations!
Station ready.
I'm on your side!
I don't know why it's lagging.
Workstation ready. Station ready.
I'll take care of it.
Clear. Keep moving.
There is an open synthetic near field on the far end of the room.
Don't you die on me!
Clear.
Thank you kindly. Grabbing ammo.
Support station ready. Grabbing ammo.
If the Cynthia's team cannibalized one of their own? Likely necessary to interface with this instrumentality.
Patching up.
The exit to the control room has been sealed. Quantum encryption.
Look at this.
We got more pathogen. Clear them out!
I got you.
I don't know why it's so laggy today. Okay, we need to go like this.
I'll get those bastards for this.
Station ready. Support station ready.
The door encryption is complex. There are other synthetics nearby. If one has an intact memory core, I may be able to reconstruct the cipher. Connecting.
Ready up.
No. The data is lost.
Kidding me?
Incoming targets. Check this out.
I don't know why it's so laggy today.
Core stability confirmed. Stand by.
Pathogen, watch the lower deck. Report's clear. Esther, what's your progress?
I don't know why it's so laggy today.
I have reconstructed Cynthia's cipher. Access the upper door,
Rearming.
over where you entered.
Grabbing ammo.
Whoa. Is this something we can mess with?
No, the controls are locked.
Get us to whatever passes for engineering. We'll take out the power, stop it from lifting off.
I just want to say,
Right, important to science or history or whatever. We'll do our best, Doc.
The files from the synthetic call this room Vitality Oven to grow.
Okay.
Idiomatically, energy capacitors.
Workstation ready.
This will be difficult.
Aid kit's here.
Access the control instrumentality.
I got you.
Aid kit's here.
Aid kit's here. I got you. Patching up.
On the ceiling, the same capacitors we encountered in the previous section. Disable the enzymatic fuel cells. Ah, I see a 17% reduction in power flow. There must be more capacitors.
Sentry deployed.
Got him. Shoot those two.
Catching up. They got me.
Ready.
Got a fuzzy signal.
up.
Watch for a stalker.
What the hell? Are you kidding me?
Mine's out.
That's pity. I don't know why it was lagging.
Endeavor's tracking large movements of xenomorphs from Pala Station to a canyon 50 clicks south. It could be something drew their attention, or they could be starting a second hive. We've been ordered dirtside to find out. Fire team, this is a... Fire team, this is a rescue mission. You're boarding Katanga, a derelict orbital refinery. Ingress is via the forward airlock. You'll locate, secure, and evac Dr. Tim Honecker, a Weyland-Yutani scientist. We got a ping on Dr. Honecker's personal data transmitter. He's not far in. First, we need a deck plan. Pull one off a terminal and chlorine extraction. Huh. Just emergency lights. And maybe we can kick the backup power after we grab Honecker. Patch into the console. I'll pull it down over wireless. Give me a second. I got a deck plan. Backup generator is beyond Honecker's ping. We can kick it after we grab it. Our men should be in the junction ahead. Honecker, this is the Colonial Marines. You hearing me? Acid damage. Not encouraging. Continue your sweep. He should be right here. High speed incoming. Get hot. Short bursts. Way more than I expected. Ambushed rear. Too many. So many. Hey, on the deck, Honecker's PDT chip. He cut it out. But why? Door's welded shut.
I'll cut it.
Sloppy work. Guess Honecker went this way. Track down Honecker. Searching this whole barge would take too long. Hold that thought.
Hey,
incoming.
check this. Look at this. Rearming.
sealed. By Honecker, probably. Release the locks. Anyway, I'm thinking we can track the doctor using station logs. I found a data access point, but it's further in. Concentrate on getting the power up. Never seen so much acid in one bug. Where did these come from? Dynamo room's just ahead. Restart's mostly automated.
Grabbing ammo.
Spinning this up is gonna make noise, vibration, heat, whatever bugs key off, they'll catch it. Be ready for a fight when you switch on. This thing's been idle a long while. It's gonna take time to... Movement! Dynamo just finished injecting lubricant. H2 feeds just connected. Getting there. Big damn signal here. Just about to kick power to the mains.
Shutdown imminent.
Oh no.
Shutdown imminent.
Okay, we will go to StarCraft. This weapon and leveling will take like 3 million years.
Very much.
First of all, George, pleasure to meet you.
Joe, great to
An
talk to you.
honor.
Great
For
to
real.
see you in
Thank
person.
you.
Finally.
Great to see you too. And Jeremy, good to see you again, my
Hey
friend.
Joe, good to see you, man.
This is we're doing this often. This is becoming a thing. George, I think that you're probably like one of the most important figures when it comes to journalism in UFOs. And when you broke the Bob Lazar story, is that 89? When was that?
1989.
89. 1989, I remember reading about it. I remember hearing about it. I remember watching clips on television and watching countless Bob Lazar interviews. It all came out of you. I mean, did you think at that time, I mean, what was your thoughts about UFOs before you had met Bob Lazar, and how much did it change while you got to know him and hear his story?
It changed quite a bit. I had not really given it much thought at all. It's probably the same level of curiosity as most people. You go about your life, you pay your bills, you go to work, you love your family, and it's always out there somewhere. Hey, I wonder what the deal is on that.
Right.
But had not really dwelled on it until it was a day in 1987. Into the studio comes a guy named John Lear. And I had heard sort of a little bit about him. His family was famous. His dad developed the Lear jet, the 8-track tape. John had run for the state senate, and he had a certain amount of credibility with our news organization, KLAS-TV, because he had helped us break a really big story. And the story was the stealth fighter, the F-117. He had told my boss, Ned Day, managing editor, about this amazing plane that was invisible to radar flying up in Tonopah in Area 51. We had an interest in Area 51, not UFO related, but Ned broke that story. It went national. So John Lear comes into the station one day with a stack of what turned out to be UFO documents. He plops them on Ned's desk and says, Ned, this is going to be the next biggest story, the biggest story in history. It's a UFO cover-up. Aliens are here. Technology's been recovered. Ned takes a look at it and says, I'm not doing this story. If it was true, I'd already know about it. This is crazy. Well, I'm eavesdropping, as I tend to do. I'm a curious person. So as he's going out, I said, Lear, let me take a look at this material. And I looked at it. I thought, well, this is kind of interesting. At the time, I was producing and hosting this little public affairs show, 30-minute interview show. It would air Sunday morning at 6 o'clock. Nobody watches it. It would be interviewing a city councilman, a county commissioner. What the heck? I'll put Lear on there. And I let him go. And he told me this big scenario about secret treaties with aliens and recovered technology and a giant cover-up. Some of the information sounded outrageous. Some of it seemed like it would be worth checking out. Suddenly, the phone starts ringing off the hook. I'm getting calls about people that, who was that guy? What was the deal on that UFO stuff? Is it real? I had him on again 6 months later, and the response was bigger. I had him on a third time with a guy named Bill Cooper. I regret that. And he told him an even more elaborate conspiracy.
He's the Behold the Pale Horse guy?
Yes.
Yeah, I read that book, and halfway through I was like, what in the fuck is this?
Yeah. He tied in the JFK assassination. And,
everything. Bases on the moon. Aliens are there right now.
He had this scenario where he had seen these documents when he was in the Navy, and he's going to tell the world about it, then he's going to go away. Well, every time he told the story, the documents got bigger and bigger, and anybody who criticized Bill Cooper became part of the secret government, including me. So we do this third show with Lear, and he hints that he knows a guy who might be going to work out at Area 51 and knows something about alien technology. That guy turns out to be Bob Lazar, but Lear didn't give me the name at that time. A couple months later, I am anchoring the 5 o'clock news on KLAS, and we have a nightly or evening interview segment, 5-minute segment, live interview. Our guest doesn't show up. And we're scrambling to find somebody to fill that hole. And I thought about Lear. So I called him up, not knowing what had been going on in Lazar's life or Lear's life. And I said, hey, is your that UFO guy you told me about, is he around? Would he do an interview? Just turned out that Bob had been through the ringer. A lot of stuff going on in his life. He felt threatened. And he said yes. We had to black out his face. We do this interview, and he spills the basics of the story. I worked out there at a place called S4. I saw 9 flying saucers in an underground base. This is technology that came from somewhere else. I'm in fear for my life. Holy cow, the phones start ringing off the hook. My news director comes rushing in, the station manager, is that for real? What's the deal on that? And we realized we had touched the pulse of the public in a way that I didn't really understand. We arranged to go meet Bob Lazar, my news director, Bob Stodall, and I, that following weekend, and put him through paces where we would ask him questions about his background and how he got the job. We spent a couple hours with him, and we walked out of that meeting thinking, holy shit, what if this is true? This is really risky for us as journalists. It's risky for our personal reputations if it blows up in our faces and we do this story, and it would really damage the reputation of our news organization, which is KLAS is a jewel. It's always been a leader in Las Vegas, one of the best TV news operations in the country. We're putting a lot on the line. Well, look, we decide, let's take our time. Let's look into this guy's story. And then in order to understand Lazar, we'd have to look at the bigger picture of UFOs. So I started a cram course on ufology, and I read everything. And I spent 8 months like cramming for a final exam that never happened. I read everything. I interviewed people. That same year, MUFON had its international symposium in Las Vegas, and there all the world's UFO people came right to me. I got to interview them, traveled around, went to Los Alamos. Lazar took us into the lab. We took cameras in there. He walked us around, waving to people. We didn't even have to stop for security. Took us into the lab like it was a rabbit going through its own burrow. He knew his way around. We were allowed to take a camera in there. We put those stories together, put them on the air in November, and man, it just went through the roof. Every night of this 9-part series, people got the audience got bigger, phones ringing off the hook, people calling, giving us information. Suddenly, it's on something called Paranet, which was sort of a precursor to the internet, and it was huge, and it changed my life for sure. I had no idea that there were so many people out there interested in the topic, and I was hooked. And I really got hooked on Lazar, not only because his story, personally, I was interested in him. We became friends. I saw what happened to him after that live interview, and in the 7.5 months before we went and I revealed his identity, people were really messing with him. I mean, you cannot convey what it was like, how weird it was then, breaking into his house, leaving the windows open, messing with things in his home, breaking into his car, leaving the doors and windows down, just messing with his head.
And you think that was the government that was doing that?
Yeah, I do. I think so. And then, so I had put out a call to people, hey, I want other people to come forward.
This was before his identity was revealed.
Yeah,
we should explain
yeah,
this.
I am actively seeking information from the public. If you ever worked at Area 51 or S4, you know anything about this, you're at Nellis Air Force Base, reach out to me. So I started getting calls, and 6 people right in a row who had talked to me on the phone and offered to give me information were visited right after the call. One of them was a guy who did tax returns for people at Nellis Air Force Base, and he had got to know these guys really well and got information about crashes. There was a guy who was a golf pro at Nellis who had gone on road trips with officers and told him about this weird stuff out at Area 51 that seemed to be from somewhere else. He gets visited and told to shut up. There was a lady who worked in the court system. A cop told me about her, and I talked to her on the phone, and she had worked at the court system, but before she had worked for a company called Holmes and Narber, which is a defense contractor. And she said she sat in as a stenographer in these meetings and heard these conversations between the government contractors and Air Force officials about crashed saucers. And they would, after the meeting, they take the tape out of the typewriter and destroy it and take all the notes. And she agreed to tell me this story. It was just a tiny piece of the story. The next day, she's visited by these 2 guys in suits. They tell her, look, you are still subject to your security clearance. I hope you know that. And then they said, we know you traveled to L.A. to see your daughter, and we know she comes here. It's a big desert out there. It'd be terrible if something happened to either one of you. This lady is scared shitless. She didn't make that stuff up. So 6 people who had offered to give me information on the phone, one right after another, get visited, and it made me mad. It also made me mad that dealing with, trying to fill in pieces of Bob Lazar's life. Now, I know there's some gaping holes. I know it better than anybody. I've had to deal with it for 31 years. But I always thought if he worked at Los Alamos in classified projects in a scientific or technical capacity, then it would make sense that he could get hired into a program like this as somebody who thinks outside the box. Despite personal shortcomings or whatever, they might bring somebody like him in to help them crack a problem that they hadn't been able to resolve themselves. So I focused on Los Alamos. I knew he had been there. I talked to people who remembered him from being there, but the lab kept telling me, no record of him. He's never here. And then I showed him, well, look, I've got the Los Alamos newspaper. It's a small town paper. There it is on the front page, a front page story. Bob Lazar, physicist, Mason facility, Los Alamos lab. It's a story about his jet car. Nope, still have no records of it.
Great.
And then I found his name in the phone book from the era when he was there. He's in the lab phone book. He had been hired by a company called Kirkmeyer, which is a company that's a headhunter that fills positions at Los Alamos and places like that. So
Big job,
great, I'll reach out to Kirkmeyer. They said, yeah, we hired him. Yeah, we've got records. Can I get it? Can I get
Not
his
enough
employment
minerals.
records that would show where he went to school, whatever information you guys had? Yes. A couple weeks go by, nothing. Couple
enough
more weeks go
minerals.
by, I call him again.
Not
I start
enough
writing them. I've
minerals.
got a stack of letters
Not
that
enough
went on
minerals.
for 2.5 years.
Not enough
Finally, by the end of
minerals.
it, they said he was never here. We don't have any records. That pissed me off. It made me mad, and I think that is really what got me hooked in the story. Is that I was being jacked around by government and national facilities like that.
Additional
We should
supply
explain
depots
the Los
required.
Alamos thing, because the Los Alamos thing coincided with him doing
Not enough
work
minerals.
at MIT, right? Is that correct?
That's how he's explained it
He
to me.
explained it.
Yeah,
And
right.
the way he explained it to me, I don't think I'm at liberty to say what the project was, because the project, the way he was describing it, is essentially internationally illegal, like what they were working on. And that's one of the reasons why he was saying, he explained what the project was. It sounded very feasible, also very evil. And then it was basically a weapon. And then he said that this was the reason why there was no actual record of him studying at MIT. It wasn't important that he got a degree. It was important that he understood the technical specifications of what they were attempting to accomplish.
That's my understanding as well. And, you know, it's always been the most problematic part of his background. And it's where a lot of people in the Bob Lazar story, that's where they stop.
But the thing is, when you listen to him talk and when he describes things, it's very clear he's educated.
Oh, he's a brilliant guy.
Yeah.
But I had always told him, and Bob, you're my friend. I want to have a conversation with you about these claimed degrees, because I didn't believe that he never sat
Additional
down.
supply
In those
depots
days, you go to a
required.
college like MIT or Caltech and get a degree. You've got to take classes in something other than science. I could not imagine Bob Lazar taking an English lit class to save his life. But he is a brilliant guy. I'll give you an example. In April, COVID thing is raging. My wife and I are staying at home. We're getting packages delivered for food and things of that sort. I'm a little worried. They didn't know about the contact, whether you can get it
Not
off
enough
the cardboard
minerals.
boxes or whatever. And I mentioned to Bob in a phone conversation, I'm thinking about buying one of these UV screener systems. He goes, wait a second, don't buy one. I think I've got the parts that I can make you one in my garage. And a week later, it arrives. This thing, he's got it in his garage, handmade. This big scanner with these UV things that works. He just whipped it up in his garage.
I'll remind you, you got the scanner. I got a laser gun.
Right.
You got a laser
I
gun?
did, man. It is super powerful. So it's like a handheld toy that he retrofitted with a super power. So I'm like lighting shit on fire in my house.
So it looks like a handheld toy,
It's
but it's actually
a toy. It's a toy with full noise,
Not
but you
enough
put a diode
minerals.
in there, and it's super
Not enough
powerful. You can
minerals.
light shit on fire. My wife hates that shit. So I got the laser gun.
You also got the flamethrower, though. Lazar made a flamethrower. This is before your buddy Elon made
No
flamethrowers.
comment on that.
Add-on
Yeah, well,
complete.
It's a massive
He made one.
flame.
He made a flamethrower.
Massive.
Yeah, he's obviously a very intelligent man. When you listen to him talk,
Not
there's no
enough
bullshitting
minerals.
going on. When
Not
he talks
enough
about very,
minerals.
when he talks about
Not enough
undeniable,
minerals.
concrete things, when it comes to
Not enough.
science, when it
Our
comes
allies
to
are being not
elements,
enough
when it comes
minerals.
to propulsion systems, he clearly knows what he's talking about. And the really confusing thing for people that are detractors is he really hasn't changed his story in 31 years. It really is the same story. And
Our
that's really
allies
hard to
are
do.
being
Even if you
attacked.
tell a true story, 31 years later, you get screwed up a little bit. It's hard. Like, when you're calling on 30, like, if I had to remember things 31 years ago, that's like, I'm 1 year in the stand-up comedy 31 years ago. I don't remember it. I barely, I'm
Add-on
going to tell
complete.
you, like, oh, yeah, it was a Sunday night, and then my friend
Our
Greg Fox
allies
says
are
Wednesday.
being
Fuck,
attacked.
yeah, you're right, it was Wednesday. Who is the host? You know, we'll have I don't know. It's a blurry slideshow. But Bob has been remarkable.
Insufficient Vespine
The only
gas.
thing that he's vacillated on and
Add-on
varied a little bit
complete.
is the whether or not he saw an alien or whether or not he saw someone who was looking at something that was the size of an
Add-on
alien,
complete.
like a small figure, whether or not they were trying to determine how large a creature that would be used on those small crafts, because the crafts were very small in terms of like for a human being. It was more like something that would walk by a window inside
Our
early
allies are complete. Not enough minerals.
but he was really clear that he only saw it for literally a second as he was walking by and saw something. Again, you know how the brain works. You can really plan false events. Everybody wants to pretend that they're going to say,
Our allies are attacked.
Bob admitted from the beginning.
Not enough minerals.
And that was
Base.
really
Our allies
reported in
are
case
being
something
attacked.
happened to him. He was afraid he was going to be killed.
Our
There
allies,
was some really weird
base
things
is
going
under
on.
attack.
And I was worried about it too. I wanted to get it on the record in
Not
case
enough
suddenly he
minerals.
disappeared. So we recorded this long interview, and always he downplays stuff like that. That's an example.
Yeah.
I saw something that was that
Our
size.
allies,
I don't believe
base
it was
is
me.
under
It was
attack.
just Limbs Mayweather messed with him. He also admits that they did mess with his head. That he had to, they underwent some kind of
Not
hypnosis
enough
that made him
minerals.
drink this weird
Not
green
enough
liquid.
minerals.
Probably LSD.
Well, maybe.
They said it was an allergy test, but yeah, I mean, but you know, to your point, just real quick, is after 30
Not
years,
enough
it's not that
minerals.
he's changed his story. He's changed. So when I was interviewing him, you know, he cracked the book back open to me. It was like he
Our
was saying, the
allies are
science
being
and technology is what I know. I had my hands on that. I can't attest to what I read in the document. Yeah, I saw something for a brief millisecond through a fucking
Insufficient
window,
Vespine
but I don't know
gas.
what that was. So
Not
people
enough
have taken what he
minerals.
said and exaggerated it. Bob has always been skeptical of the things he didn't have his hands on, and I admire that. And he's changed as a human. As a human, he's matured.
Not enough.
So now he's saying, okay, let me look at it rationally. I don't know what I saw through that window.
Right.
And I appreciate that. He's so straight.
Yeah, he's very.
Various scenarios have popped up over the years about why he came forward. There are
Insufficient
people who
Vespine
believe he
gas.
just made it up. He was trying to make money, or he wanted attention. There are people who believe it's government disinformation to distract
allies
attention
are being
from
attacked.
something else that was going
Our
on.
allies are being
Or they believe both of them, which, you know, they would seem to be mutually exclusive. Bob would admit that he had no business being there. That there were much more qualified people to
Our
work on
allies'
those kind of
base
things.
is under
Maybe
attack.
he was a guy who thinks outside the box, who
Our
might give a new
allies are
slant on
being
trying to figure
attacked.
this stuff out that they had for decades and had not
Not
been
enough.
able to
Insufficient
do.
We should
Vespine
explain that
gas.
a little bit. The Los Alamos lab story was him. He put a jet engine on a Honda.
Right.
And it was a functional
Our
jet
allies are
car that
being
he
attacked.
built himself. So he was a legitimate propulsion expert. And again, like a super
Insufficient
science.
Vespine gas.
Like where he got his education is what's weird, right?
I
It's like,
finally got an interview with the guy that wrote that article 2 weeks ago.
Now what?
Our allies are being attacked.
Finally, after all the time, here's the point. You said Bob was going to so how did you base that? You're writing a paper. Because yeah, it got picked up by AP News. That's fine. If I had misrepresented that he was a physicist
Our
at Los
allies are
Alamos,
being
I would have
attacked.
been blackballed by everybody at Los Alamos. They take that very seriously. He was a physicist. I reported it. AP News picked it up. They repeated it. Not one to many. Thank you very much. And I found out. Yeah.
this is a real hot
Yeah.
rod.
And he did the story
Our
because the car
allies
was
are being
badass.
attacked.
He tired it out.
Additional supply
But he has a
depots
history of this. He
required.
also made a hydrogen powered later on. Yeah, he's a wizard. He's a very smart guy.
Additional
he
supply
will admit
depots
to you that
required.
maybe he was picked.
Additional supply depots
They
required.
figured
Our allies are being attacked.
labs, we can discredit this guy like that. When we're done with him,
Additional supply
there's
depots
things in his
required.
background. He likes to blow things up close. He liked machine guns. He had an illegal fireworks show that would go out in the desert every year. A world-class event. He got into some legal trouble after he'd worked out there. So there's a lot of things in his life they could use to discredit him. But the people who
Upgrade
still
complete.
maintain that Bob was
Our
a
allies
disinformation
are being
bomb,
attacked.
it was meant to distract attention out from something else. Whoever came up with that idea, Area 51 is now known all over the world. Sorry, but the Bob Lazar version of that stuff is the one that prevails. It's known
allies are
everywhere.
being
It's been in
attacked.
movies
Mineral
and books
field
and TV
depleted.
shows. It's launched 1,000 different, products like the hat. That
Yeah.
Las Vegas 51s, our AAA baseball team became the 51s because of the Lazar story.
Our
The
allies
ET
are
Highway
being attacked.
is created and christened by our governor. That story, that version that he told is now known all over the world, whether detractors like it or not. And if somebody was trying to distract attention away from something going on at Area 51, it failed miserably because tens of thousands of people made the
Mineral
trek out there.
field
Even today,
depleted.
31 years later, every single day there's somebody with
Our
binoculars
allies are
or a
being
scope or
attacked.
something looking for whatever is flying around
Our
out there.
allies are being
Every
attacked.
major news organization in the world, after giving me nothing but grief, has beaten a path to Area 51's door. All of them, they've all done it. And
Mineral
Bob's
field
story
depleted.
about reverse engineering craft from somewhere else is
Research
now
complete.
part of a much larger and current
allies are
series of
being
events
attacked.
that we can get into.
Yeah, and that story that he told when he was on the podcast here got phenomenal
Our
response.
allies are
There
being
were so many
attacked.
people that I talked to that they call me up and go, "Hey man, I'm starting to believe this is real." And I'm like, "You should watch the documentary, and then you should watch the Commander Fravor
Our allies
interview
are
where he
being
talks about
attacked.
the Tic Tac UFO that they encountered off of San Diego." Because you're talking about a rock solid military man with no shenanigans in his background, who is telling a story about the craft, our understanding of propulsion systems, and quite a few people from that interview have completely changed their tune. Friends of mine who thought it was total horseshit
Our allies
have done
are
a
being
180, and they're
attacked.
like, "Fuck, is this real?" Then the New York Times story came out, of course.
Our allies are being attacked.
Exhibit very similar methods, or at least speeds
Our
that they can
allies are
explain.
being attacked.
They move the same way. There's legitimate people, legitimate scientists now that are starting to take this into consideration and say, "If this is from Earth, then there's got to be some sort of program
Our
that
allies
has
are being
technology that's
attacked.
far beyond anything we knew was possible." How did they do it? Is it because
Our
there's some
allies
super
are
geniuses
being
that the
attacked.
government gets a hold of right before college and they immediately ship them off to crazy stuff? Or are we, in fact, like us from the future or something from another place that has had a completely
Our
different
allies are
path
being
to
attacked.
technology? But it's not outside the realm of possibility. We're here. We're here
Our
sending
allies
videos
are
through our
being
phones
attacked.
to each other. You know, we're talking to people. Relayed through the sky.
Additional supply
We're
depots
watching
required.
films that are wirelessly
Additional
from
supply
these
depots
servers.
required.
I mean, just the technology that we have right now
Our allies
is
are
completely
being
alien
attacked.
to anybody who was around in Roscoe. This better be good. From 1947 to 2020, in terms
Additional
of the
supply
universe, is
depots
not even a half of a blink of an eye. And
Additional
then, boom,
supply
things have changed
depots
so rapidly.
required.
It's not to think that something from somewhere is far ahead of us.
Yes, so that's one of the big things. Getting Commander Fravor in that room with Bob was so cool because Bob talks to whoever he's talking with. He helps you understand what he's saying. He can go into high specified detail on stuff, but typically he's just talking to whoever's there. When I got him in front of Commander Fravor, all of us and Matt, we were all in the room. It was amazing because Commander Fravor saw it too. He saw something like Bob saw it. And the way that the craft, the Tic Tac moved, it cannot be something that we have because it was clearly gravitationally propelled. This is something they talk about. Commander Fravor saw it bouncing like a ping pong ball on the inside of a glass. The inertia, being able to go bum, bum, bum. And the coolest thing Bob said was, well, Commander Fravor, Dave, it could have been a subject to a time distortion. So you're seeing it one way. And they started talking about gravity amplification. It was just so cool to see them talk without an audience. What the fuck did Commander Fravor see? And Bob it's cool that when he can be calm and chill like that and just talk to another human.
And what's crazy is what Commander Fravor is describing is what Bob was describing, the propulsion systems of 1989 that they were working on.
Straight up.
It's the exact same thing. Even the way it turns sideways
Yeah.
to move off.
Well,
that's
that's the
exactly how he's describing it.
Yeah, that's
which is crazy.
The gimbal craft, we have this video and everybody says, oh, it's this, it's that, it's another plane, an FA-18. Dude, I've talked with a dude at Boeing now who he serviced these pods that it was caught on, the gimbal. That thing is self-rotating. It is a saucer-shaped thing that is rotating mechanically against the wind. They all know that this has to be a gravity-propelled program. We understand the science that it takes to do it. We can't replicate
Jeremy,
it.
pull that thing
Sorry,
close
I
to your
always
face.
do that.
It's okay. Just have it right up to your face.
We can't replicate it, right? With our material science is our best information at this time. We can't replicate this technology, but we do understand how it works fundamentally.
Fundamentally, we just don't have the power to actually make it.
The material science, even just the actual physical material science, the materials it's made out of, and that's what's been in the news now. Metamaterials, that there are materials from craft that we have. George will talk about that, but Lazar is parallel with what we're seeing today.
Yeah, and what's also really bonkers is in '89 he was talking about element 115. It wasn't even scientifically proven to exist until 2013. So in 1989 he was talking about this is science fiction. He's making things up. In 2013, they actually were able to create, for a brief moment, an element 115, which is this insanely dense element that they believe is perhaps the propulsion system for this craft.
It was always theorized, of course, element 115, but fabricating it was an achievement. But yeah, if you're talking about being a winner every time history writes itself, Bob it's insane.
He's batting 100%.
100%.
Hey, he knew there was a place called S4. There had been no articles about that, no mention. I looked for it. You know, I called Nellis Air Force Base and asked them, do you have a place called S4 anywhere on the range? Yeah. In fact, we have more than one. So can you tell me where they are? No. Can you tell me what goes on there? No. Well, there was a facility at Papoose. I think it was built into the side of the mountain, and you can see the dirt road on the old satellite photos. Why were people going down there? And then, of course, the video. He goes out there with his friends when he thinks he's going to be killed or he's going to disappear, and 3 weeks in a row, you've talked about it on this program, and they videotaped it, and all the witnesses who were there have verified it, and it was not over Area 51. It was over Papoose, which officially has no facility. Nothing has ever been there. Bob knew a lot of stuff that he couldn't have known otherwise, and it's been proven over the years.
And he didn't know stuff that was disproven. He didn't come out. He didn't make up a bunch of crazy shit that you go like the William Cooper book, right? Yeah. Like there's a lot of people that have speculated what that was all about. Whether William Cooper was just schizophrenic, whether he was writing some truths mixed in with crazy things so you could discount the truth. I mean, that is a real strategy that the government will employ if they know that information is going to get leaked out and they want to somehow or another discredit it. They'll connect it to really loony stuff that is absolutely not true. And you'll say, well, where'd you get that information? Oh, I got it from Behold the Pale Horse. Oh, Christ. Did you read all the stuff in that book? Right? I mean, so there's that thought, but there's none of that with Bob. With Bob, everything that he talked, it's so eerie.
Every time you turn over a stone, I think I'm going to find... At first, that's how George and I met. I thought I was going to see these guys cooked it up. That was my first entry point in 2012. I thought they cooked it up. Every stone you turn over, to be clear what George just said, Bob always said there's a place called Site 4. That was never mentioned anywhere at Papoose. He verified it in 1989 with head of public relations, who was a homie of his at Area 51. We then call 30 years later, and they give us the funniest fucking answer, trying to not talk about Site 4. So he confirmed it. Every time you turn over a stone, man, every time, Bob's proven right, and it's annoying.
What was the experiment that he did with Element 115 that you guys videotaped?
It was
Is that available online? Can someone watch that?
No. It was called a cloud chamber test. So he had this stuff. I know people don't believe that it exists, and he never had any of it. They're welcome to believe it, but he had a piece of it. He didn't steal it.
How big was the piece?
The only time I ever saw it, it was in his lead shield round disc. And he had it for a while. It was in an office.
Was it because it's radioactive?
I think it's stable. I don't think it's radioactive. That's how it was shipped to him.
So it's in a lead disc.
Protect it from bombardment because it will become unstable very quickly. That's how he says they used it in the craft. So yeah, he had it in a puck and
like George, a hockey puck looking.
Yeah, like a metal sandwich.
And it's lead.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's in this thing.
Yeah, and I showed it, and I had it in the background in one of our stories, just sort of an inside joke. It's sitting in there. But Bob used to keep it in front of a particle accelerator that he had built at his home. You know, every non-scientist builds a particle accelerator in their home, and he had it there when he thought he was going to be killed. It was sort of a defense mechanism for him. He had it right in front. All he had to do is flip a switch, and he thought it could explode. I think he meant to scare people from coming in trying to take him out. But this cloud chamber test was the only time I think he ever took it out of this thing. And I got there right as the experiment ended, where they had this little chamber and it bent light. Now they showed me the video. I don't pretend to be a scientist. I don't try to be an expert on things I really don't know. But it looked to me like light was bending in this experiment, which it shouldn't be able to do. It's like a laser that bent.
I've seen some of this.
Jeremy has a little piece of it.
I was able to find, man, this was a search. So George, from day one, when
Do you have it right now? That video?
On me, it's in my movie.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. But basically, what happened is, it's so annoying. I'm like, you guys have footage of this because Bob never filmed this to put out to the public. It was to show his friends, like taking them to the test site, show them the saucers. It was so his friends didn't think he was fucking crazy. So they film it, and lo and behold, they give it to George. It's in a brown case. It's somewhere in his archives. I've sorted through his whole damn house, man. I can't find this tape. So then I asked Bob, is there anywhere this could be anywhere else? This is important footage, Bob. And I find it sandwiched between two Golden Girls episodes on some tape he kind of recorded over. So I got out to the public, 17 or 30 seconds of this cool down phase of the test.
Is that online anywhere?
It's in my film. I can put it online.
Right, but is it online? Has
No.
anybody taken that?
I got it.
No?
I found it in these old tapes. They couldn't
Right, but
find
you know how people take little things from movies and sometimes put
Oh,
them online.
maybe somebody has,
Could
but
be.
I'll post it, man. It's
Okay.
cool. It's cool. It doesn't. But Bob says he's so unimpressed with everything. He's like, Jeremy, that doesn't show the cool part of the test. It's just the cool down period. And I'm like, well, it shows that you filmed this with your friends back then, and that at least you believed you had 115. So what I have in the film
Very
is
long
not
waiting time
definitive
today.
proof, but it shows that they weren't lying. That they filmed it. George was there.
Bob would just assume that goes away, that people not
Is
talk
this
about
it?
it.
Is this it?
Yeah,
That's it.
That's it.
Jamie's the best.
Jamie. Wow.
So what's happening here? Explain. This looks like he's growing a plant or some shit. What is
Right.
this?
So this is why Bob was so unimpressed with what I found sandwiched in his personal home videos.
That's the disc. That's the top of the disc with
Okay.
a cross on top.
Yeah. So he was trying to show his friends, like today, if you had a laser pointer.
So here's the
the
cloud.
cloud.
You could look at it over there, Jeremy, if you don't want to turn around.
Oh, got it.
So
So if Bob had a laser pointer back then, with the principles of the 115, which he did get out, and he does
where's
not
the 115 in this image?
inside of
In that disc.
the clamshell, inside of the puck.
So that's that surface. We're looking at the surface
Yeah,
of this clamshell.
that's the top of this thing.
Okay.
Yeah, and so he'd have it in there. Now the whole sensitivity for him is there's real world implications. If he's telling the truth to us about it,
I don't understand what I just saw though. I didn't see anything.
You
Go
didn't
back
see
to
it
that.
bend. You don't see it.
Replay that again,
It's
Jan?
the only piece of the tape that still exists, but it's not the
Yeah.
key part of that.
all it shows, Joe, is that they filmed a home experiment back then. He demonstrated for his friends how light was bent by the material itself.
I understand that, but I'm not seeing that.
You're
here.
not. You're not seeing
So
it.
this
This
is
is
not-
the only piece of the tape that still exists, but it's not this central
Oh,
piece.
was this in the film?
Yeah, it was briefly. I didn't highlight it because it was like I
But
didn't.
I'm not seeing anything in this. This is what's confusing to me. This seems like nothing. Like nothing's going on at all.
Right. That's the point. Is that he has a long version. George, blame him.
Yeah,
man.
it's my fault.
No, but I understand. But why is this in the film then if nothing's happening?
It was a splash over when he was talking about 115. He doesn't like talking about how he got it out, but it was like a Easter egg. in the
Jeremy
film.
wanted to demonstrate that it had been the recording did exist at one point, but that's the only piece that's left of it. I'm the guy who got the tape.
So you
And
got a full tape,
I
but
got
you
the
just
full
don't know
tape.
where it is.
I have no idea.
Is it in your house somewhere?
I doubt it. I mean,
Where-
I've
where-
looked. He's looked. I've looked.
Where could it be?
Dude, you should see his house.
Yeah.
Joe, I looked for years, man. I went through, made him take and digitize all these tapes. I took hundreds of tapes and digitized them, looking for this little 2 minutes.
That seems like a big deal, though.
Yeah, it's
Why-
a really
how
big
could
deal.
You lose that?
I mean, I've got thousands of tapes
I
from that
understand.
era, and I have saved them all, and I've moved them around, and then I'd use them in different productions. I can't find it. I know that is very unsatisfactory for people, and I've been accused of making it up or
It's
lying
actually
or
very
hiding it.
appropriate considering the history of this stuff.
Yes.
It's kind of funny.
Frustrating as fuck, man.
Of course, but kind of funny.
The aftermath of Bob coming forward, of course, it messed with his life in a big way, and he was not all that much of he was sort of a semi-recluse anyway. But the stuff that goes on here, even 31 years later, you know what it's like. These fanboys. He's got people that got the Bob Lazar disease really bad, and they still deal with him. They spend their days now, all these years later, focusing on Bob. That 2 weeks ago, somebody put something on Twitter. It was an interview. These guys had gone to New Mexico to find people that had worked with Lazar a long time ago, and then tried to dig up dirt. Hey, do you remember working with Bob, or you knew him back then? Yeah. Did he have teenagers working for him at his photo shop? Yeah. You ever seen anything weird with him and little girls? No, the guy says. And then the interviewer says, well, we heard that he tried to solicit a 14-year-old girl to work at a brothel. And then they put this, the guy says, I don't know anything about that. They put this on Twitter with the headline, Bob Lazar solicited 14-year-old girl to go into prostitution.
So who's doing this? Just some
guys
online trolls?
People who've got it bad. And there's so many of them that every day they post something about Bob Lazar. It's
Really?
every day.
Oh my God, dude.
Well, I think UFOs attract a certain percentage of schizophrenics.
Totally. But
Yeah.
this is like so horrible, the way that his story, I mean, they just, I've never seen it like this. I get it. Because I did a film on Bob, I get death threats because of Bob. That's his life every day.
You know, I had a military guy who I had asked years ago about disinformation. You know, do you guys have to see disinformation out there to discredit the UFO story? He said, we don't have to plant anything.
No, I want
UFO
some
people
change
do it
because
all
I'm
to
like last
themselves. I mean, they're
2 days
nuts.
I'm only
Yeah.
there.
I had a
Which is
I
like
got
my
a
favorite race,
PhD
but
in ufology,
doing
in
also some
essence,
polls.
by working on that story and then subsequent stories, because the public had reacted in such a way. All right, I'm going to stick with it, but what you run into in the topic, it's no wonder that you've gone back and forth on it. So have I.
Yeah.
Questioning whether, is this a good use of my time? Because there's so many of them that are absolutely nuts and psychopaths, and they make stuff up and
They also make a living doing it. Like
Some of
Jamie and I were watching Ancient Aliens the other day, and we were laughing. We're like, what are the qualifications of being a UFO researcher? Like, you don't have to have a degree. You have to be a bullshit artist who's willing to get on the History Channel and talk about UFOs. Like, literally, you just have to know a few facts that you could spit out. And some guys were clearly reading off the script. I'm like, this has got to be the lowest bar for, like, in terms of, like, what does your son do? Oh, he's a scientific expert on the History Channel. Amazing. You know, but what is he really? He's a fucking UFO researcher. Well, what does that mean? It just means he's a guy who's into UFOs who can string words together in an appropriate sentence that seems like he knows what he's talking about, and so they put him on TV. And when I did that sci-fi show, Joe Rogan Questions Everything, I lost all my faith in UFO research.
Yeah.
And I brought it back because of your documentary is what brought it, and Dave Fogelman, because talking to Dave.
Fucking love Dave.
I love Dave.
Yeah.
But he's so into it, man. I'm like, really? He's like, you got to look into this. You got to look into that. You know, he's telling all these things. I'm like, all right, one more time. Here we go. And then when I watched your documentary, I was like, holy shit. And it really rekindled my thoughts about Bob Lazar because I remember being really interested in it.
The topic itself discourages serious inquiry by journalists, by scientists, because you have to wade through so much crap. You know, 95% of it is total crap, or it is honest misidentifications of prosaic objects. But that 5%, it's really interesting, and it's why the government is now, looking into it once again.
Yeah, it is really weird to see the government looking into it openly. That's what's strange. Like the fact that they're like the younger version of me would be like bracing myself for contact. I'd be like, it's coming. If they're talking to us about it now, because my thought was always like, they probably, if UFOs are real and aliens exist, they have it in contact, they probably don't think they can handle it. So they probably want to keep us as calm as possible and just dismiss everything and go back to work, go back to sleep. Do what you got to do. Don't pay attention to this. This is all nonsense, and that's what most people do. But when the government is actually openly discussing the fact they not only been studying this, but they have some video footage of some things they cannot explain, and they're saying this. It's just out in public, in legitimate, recognized publications, newspapers, television shows. It's weird to see.
Very weird for me. Now it's 33 years that I've been chasing this, and I become, and I don't want to talk about me, but I mean, I become the UFO reporter, whether I like it or not. I'm not the UFO reporter. I'm a reporter who's interested in that. The UFO stories I've done in all that time, it's been a lot, but as a percentage of all the reports that I do, it's small. Right. I'm a news guy. I chase bad guys mostly for the I-Team, but those UFO stories have gone all over the world.
Green and go.
The UFO field is so polluted with liars and exaggerators and fast buck artists and people who appropriate the story for their own political agendas. to make money, to get attention. It takes 90% of your energy just to wade through the crap and get to the hard facts. There aren't that many of them, and to figure out who's telling the truth, who's reliable, who's honestly trying to pursue the story and get to the truth. It's a
call an ambulance, but not
task
for
that
me.
is difficult, and I don't blame other journalists for not giving it a fair shake, because it's not something you could do in a week. I remember saying to myself, this is how cocky I was at the beginning, is
there is a pain. Oh no.
Boy, this field is a mess. But there is some good information in here. Give me 6 months and I'll have this figured out. Well, there's 33 years.
Oh no.
I know less than I did now. I know I have a lot more facts in my head, but all the big questions with no answers to them, I don't think anybody does. Who they are, where they're from, why they're here, what their interest is in us, what the long-term agenda is. We don't know that, and I don't think anybody does. I've gone pretty far high up.
As a career journalist, what did it feel like to you when you started seeing the government?
We need to manually select.
We are trying to investigate these reports. We know that there's something to them. These are real claims.
Kill Hellions, my god.
Real pilots, real scientists review these things, and they find something.
It's a mix. For the most part, the media realists.
Can't go there.
All the years of this, everywhere you go, you run into when dealing with the government.
Not good on choke point, my god. But they're like badly bruised, so you can catch like at least one.
There's a big long history of documents that they exchange, reports, memos, incident reports, before the Freedom of Information Act became the law of the land, and they're very candid with each other. They're not that way anymore. They hide stuff. But back in those days, they were candid that this is from somewhere else. This is real. It's not this. We need to look into this. We got to make sure it's not Russians or Chinese. We have to figure out who's got this technology, because we don't. It's not ours. And then, of course, when the Freedom of Information Act became the law of the land, all these agencies that had lied about it, nope, we don't have any UFO reports, have to draw up thousands and thousands of pages. They have absolutely stonewalled this and lied to the public for a long time. So to finally see them admit, yes, we're taking it seriously, which I have known all along. Of course they have to study this. Unknown craft float over our nuclear missile bases, disarm the missiles. We chase fighter jets, go after them.
Okay, like we are keeping them on
circles
base.
around our best technology.
Oh no.
Nuclear power plants, nuclear weapons, nuclear facilities like Los Alamos. It is a national security issue.
Okay.
And they have been paying attention.
We will be super greedy.
Telling us. So for the New York Times to come out in December 2017 and say, yeah, there was a program, and yeah, they've been looking at UFOs. Oh, by the way, it's all done now. It's still a mixture of lies and some glimpses of truth. But I never thought I would see this in my lifetime. I never thought I'd see this many progress. The last 2.5 years has been the most astonishing time in the history of this subject. And I'll tell you, Joe, there is stuff bubbling right under the surface now that is going to rock our world, I think, in the next year or so.
Did you see Trump on TV being interviewed by his son?
No. It's my overlord. No.
Very interesting.
We're going to open Roswell.
Area 51.
Yeah, well, he's barely paying attention.
I think he has been briefed. I think he has been briefed more than once. You know, I think because he watches Tucker Carlson, and Tucker's got UFO people on there once a month.
Does he?
Yeah, he's had for the last year. He's had UFO people once a month or so. Lou Elizondo and Chris Mellon and people like that. And I thought that would, if anything, that would get Trump's attention, because you know that's what he pays attention.
Right. That's hilarious. These stories about UFOs over nuclear bases and weapons facilities and things along those lines, has that been substantiated?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So this happened
Tell me the stories.
1975. They called it the Northern Tier case. So we have a string of bases up by the Canadian border, all the way across the U.S. from Maine to Montana. Nuclear missile facilities. They were ready to go in the darkest days of the Cold War. Those missiles, ICBMs, are ready to go, aimed at Moscow and other places. And in 1975, 74 and 75, one after another, these bases were visited. They thought they were mystery helicopters or something, lights in the sky right over the missiles. In a couple of cases,
To go on 3 base full saturation and like mass units.
we wouldn't have had those missiles being able to fire. there are some indications that the launch control code was interfered with. And then we scrambled jets. The military personnel had reported this up, and the things go away. We can't catch them. Whatever they were, it clearly is a threat to national security.
Can I
But
stop you for a second?
Yeah.
There? Is there an official record of these encounters?
yes, and those documents you can find.
What's
The
this?
Washington
Oh, no.
Post broke the story in the 70s. They had obtained some of these documents after Freedom of
I know
Information
that.
Act came forward. And then the most recent study, BASS, OSAP, that we can talk about, they also really focused on these sorts of services. They looked up some of those guys. They found some of the nuclear missile officers and security personnel and interviewed them, and they told the story all over again. There's a guy named Robert Hastings, UFOs and nukes. He has been his specialty for the last 30 years. He wrote a book, made a film. It's chilling. Part of what has happened is it not only happened to us, the U.S., but in Russia. So once I got UFO fever and became a UFO reporter, I traveled all over the world. And one of the places I went twice was Russia. After the fall of the Soviet Union, it occurred to me that maybe we might be able to learn more from the Russians about what our government knows about UFOs than our government will ever tell us. And I met a Russian physicist who was here in the U.S. to lecture on disarmament issues at national labs. He was getting ready to go back to Russia. He had been the national security advisor to Boris Yeltsin. He was the national security advisor to the Russian parliament. He had taught Russian cosmonauts how to spot American nuclear submarines from space. He was connected. So I had a beer with him at the suggestion of a U.S. congressman. And I said, hey, Nikolai, you ever hear any of your guys in Russia at high levels talk about UFOs? No, can't really think of that. That doesn't ring a bell. You have another beer? And he said, I do have a guy at the KGB who told me that they had looked into it for a while. And I thought, well, the KGB had just released its Oswald files. That maybe this is a golden opportunity to find out what they know. Because they are a superpower, they have nuclear weapons, they would have seen the same things we've been seeing. So I went to Russia, sent Nikolai over back to Moscow, gave him a stipend, and his instructions were find people who were in a position to know, high up in the military or the government, who had never talked about this before. And it took about 8 months for him to report back and get everything lined up. And then I went to Russia and met him and interviewed him. These were former military guys. There was a guy named Colonel Boris Sokolov who was a gold mine of information. He told us about a previously unknown study, probably the biggest UFO study in the history of the world. For 10 years, from 78 to 88, the Russian military empire, every military unit in Russia, in their whole military, global, if they saw any ball of light, anomalous aircraft, UFO, anything weird like that, they had to report it to the KGB, and then all that information went to one desk at the Ministry of Defense. Colonel Sokolov was that desk, and they had thousands of reports that had never been made public before. He told me about 45 different incidents where Russian warplanes had chased UFOs, couldn't catch them. 3 of the instances, these UFOs shot them down. 2 of those pilots died. And after that, he said, the order went out, look, if you see these things, don't mess with them. He said their study was for a very practical reason. These craft could do things that the Russians could not. And they wanted to get an advantage over the Americans in terms of stealth technology. They wanted to do what people in reverse engineering programs are doing, figure out how the UFOs work so they could have an advantage over us. I had to smuggle some of these documents back. If I had been caught with this stuff, because some of it was classified, if I'd been caught, I'd still be in a gulag somewhere. But I got it back. I shared it with some people. It eventually found its way into the U.S. government's hands. And it tells us basically a lot of what we now know about our own government, that they have always taken this seriously. And one of the incidents, I'm sorry I made the long way around on that story, was an ICBM base in the Ukraine. Colonel Sokolov says that a giant UFO appeared over this base. These are missiles that are trained to go to New York and Los Angeles. They're very serious stuff there. It's a very secure facility. Giant UFO appears over this base. It splits into pieces, and then it melds back apart, and it performs this task for a couple of hours. The base is on high alert. And all of a sudden, the nuclear control facilities lights up like a Christmas tree. And whatever this thing was, it entered the launch control codes. The missiles were enabled. They start firing up. They're ready to go.
Oh my god, that's a lot of times.
The whole thing shuts down, goes back to normal. Colonel Sokolov said his teams
Yeah,
there
you can run
to
around
investigate
there
it.
now.
They
You
took
can
the
go around.
machines apart, could not figure out what it had done, and he told me, we think that they were sending us a message that these are your most powerful weapons, but we're not impressed. The same kind of thing. But we don't let them do it. Bring a strong paper trail that will really get them. Now, what is a bigger nuclear powered area there and other warships around it? And you got these strange radar sightings for a couple of weeks right off the coast of the U.S. This is an intruder. And even though these aliens, whatever they are not firing beams and wiping out our cities, you have to consider it a threat. That's the job of our Defense Department. They don't know what it is, but they know it shouldn't be there, and it's not ours. And I think that's what the program is going on right now. It's a legitimate national security issue. It deserves to be investigated, in spite of the larger social implications that we're not alone.
The TikTok craft, or Tic-Tac craft, goddamn
Yeah,
TikTok.
TikTok.
Away from that word. The Tic-Tac craft that was spotted off San Diego, it performed something spectacular. Its ability to go from the surface of the water to 60,000 feet in how long?
Less than a second, but there's actually more to it. There was a craft. Remember, I was talking with Commander Faber before it was public.
Yeah.
There was a craft under the water too. The within a second, and stopping on a dime, and then making the movements Commander Fravor saw.
Hive cluster under direct assault.
Then
Mineral
he
field
said to me in
depleted.
our first talk ever, I'll never forget this, because I'm
Mineral
talking to a fighter
cluster
pilot, and I got to talk
expended.
fighter pilot now.
Allies base under
He says
assault.
to me, it noticed me. And I go, what do you mean it noticed me? He says, as I was
Allied
descending rapidly to
insufficient
engage
combat
it,
speed,
it turned
gas.
its nose and began to intelligently
Allies
mirror
base under
my
assault.
movements. Came right up by me,
Allies
and he says
base
faster
under
than
assault.
you can see, like you can't even see a bullet.
Swarm forces under attack.
Shut off.
Swarm forces. Allied force attack in combat. Mutation. Mineral
Whatever
cluster
propels that is not a
expended.
reactionary propulsion
Additional
system.
Allied forces in combat.
Meaning it's not
Allied
pushing
base
something off
under
the back.
assault. Swarm forces
Like
under
everything else,
Fire
attack.
and explosion.
Allied
Everything
forces
else we
in
know, you gotta
combat.
have something going back to go to a back.
We are dead. That's
Now,
right.
Forces under
that's
attack.
exactly how Bob described it.
Allied forces. Allied space
And these
under
incursions,
assault.
by the way.
Mineral
Look,
cluster
there's stuff George reports
expended.
on. There's a lot of like filmmaker
Allied
myself. People
forces
tell me
in
stories all the time.
combat.
These
It's
incursions,
not what
it's not a rarity.
Swarm
These are
mutated.
happening to
and
this day. I just
this
heard about
speed.
one in Guam.
Evolution complete.
Incursions over high security airspace over our weapons
Allied
systems.
forces
And
in
in Guam,
combat.
I was
Allied
just
space
recently
under
at
assault.
Pantex facility with igloos where we hold our weapons, stuff like that. Not 'cause we
Additional
can't handle it,
Vespene
people flip out.
gas
We
required.
just want to make sure we can get this
Vespene
first,
geyser
because it's a game.
exhausted.
Now,
Allied
let's talk
space
about the
under
people that have
assault.
tried to debunk this and why they're wrong.
Allied forces
Because they've
in
made some
combat.
debunking
Swarm forces
claims
under
about
attack.
some of these videos and about
Ah,
track
sure.
these
Thanks.
things. That's incorrect.
Allied
Where they
space
don't
under
really
assault.
understand what they're
Allied
debunking.
forces.
So
Allied
please
combat
explain
under
that, because
assault.
that's one of the things that people are immediately going to go to. They're going to go, well, Midwest is already debunked it. I've read the stuff that he says. It's mental gymnastics to try to explain it the way he's explaining it without recognition of the fact that these things are actively blocking radar. These things are actively blocking tracking systems. These are physical predators. This is not like a bird or something. Like a lot of the wacky theories that he has are like, I wonder, you know, it's real weird, like that a smart man can make such really bizarre conclusions. Very weird. Almost like someone wants him to do those.
Sure. I mean, look, it's so exciting that we're seeing something and the government's saying, okay, these are UFOs. We have not identified them. They have propulsion techniques that we don't have. And we're just talking about the videos.
Let's talk about the debunking, though.
Okay.
Talk about the debunking and what his claims are in the debunking.
Okay, so one that I recently, attacked because it was so ridiculous is he was saying that the Go Fast video, which is this, object that goes along in a straight line, one of the 3 videos that was released. He said what was probably a bird. That was his first theory.
Let's pull up the Go Fast video.
Yeah. I mean, I recently went deep into talking with Boeing experts who work on these FLIR pods. They're telling me how they work, what they can capture, why.
Explain what a FLIR pod is.
A forward-looking infrared. So basically, on fighter planes, you have a camera.
So here's the video. We're pulling it up right here.
Sure, that's mounted, and it's essentially recording in thermal imagery. These things are. This is not Instagram. These things are weapons systems that are highly trained to be able to accurately represent spatial awareness and to be able to target, enemy combatants. This is not an iPhone, an Instagram. These are weapons for us. So out of the 3 videos, if we just look at this one, although I like the Tic Tac one with Commander Fravor and I like the gimbal one, those are awesome. This one gives us very little information. But the idea that this would be a bird, if you talk to anybody that uses these pods, you can't pinpoint on a bird. You can't lock a weapon system on a frickin' bird.
Well, look how fast it's going, too.
Well, here's what's so interesting is everybody can debate speed.
So this is where it's locked in on it.
Right.
So the weapon system is locked in on this thing, and it's tracking it now.
Right, and they got real excited when they locked it because they said boxed a moving target, right? So here's the deal, though. Out of anything I could say about this video, because there's not a lot of information in there, what I can say is that object you're seeing is colder than the surface of the ocean. Now, I looked up the surface of the ocean temperature at that location at that time because we had the information. It was like 65 degrees. What propulsion system? So a bird. A bird is about 100 and let's say 5 degrees, like a seagull. Seagulls can go maybe 15 miles an hour. I don't know how fast they can go. But they wouldn't be colder than the ocean. They'd be hypothermic and dead. It cannot be a bird because what we're seeing is a colder object than the surface of the water. That's why you're seeing it white.
And how fast is it going?
That's under debate. There's different
interpretations.
Yeah. So I'll give you one interpretation about 240 miles an hour. Some people say, and then they can argue, well, the fastest bird in a nosedive could go that fast. So back up. We have an object that is colder than the surface of the ocean. That immediately gets rid of the bird theory because a bird would be hypothermic and drop like a paperweight into the water. It cannot fly at that. So that's the piece of information I would attack that debunking with.
But this video, when you're watching that, if it is going 200 miles an hour, that's not outside of what's possible with a spacecraft or aircraft
Not enough
or
minerals.
just planes.
Right.
Not
but
enough
it's cool.
minerals.
I understand that.
That's pretty cool.
But it's very interesting. But it's not moving anywhere near as fast as
Very good.
No. This is
Very
just something
good.
because this is part, and George can tell you, this was part of a much bigger series of events. So like the gimbal
Additional
craft
supply
itself,
depots
that's another
required.
debunking thing. They said it's a plane banking away and you're seeing it through thermal. First of all, talk with the pilot. Yes, sir. Not fucking so.
This is the gimbal.
Yeah, the gimbal.
It's pulling it up right now. And
so-
how fast is this thing supposed to be going?
The speed, from what I recall, wasn't registered on the radar. It's not that it's going fast. If you talk with the pilots, it was rotating. It was spinning like a top gun for like 11 hours without refueling. I mean, the thing was just sitting out there. This is an occurrence that happened over a course of many, many weeks. Now, when it rotates like that, the debunking theory is that you're seeing a plane bank. So as if our military doesn't know what another plane is. Will do. Other planes look very different when you see them through thermal. This thing was self-rotating, and I just did an interview.
And how fast is this, or rather, how warm is this thing supposed to be? Is this supposed to actually be hot?
Not enough
I am
minerals.
unaware of
Because you're looking at it through thermal, right?
Yeah, I'm unaware of the specifics of that one when it comes to heat. All I know is that it is self-actuating. It is not something that is a glare or flare of a heat signature, making it look like it's turning. The actual craft is self-actuating.
What is that
Complete.
halo
Not
around
enough
it?
minerals.
That's just an artifact of the FLIR thermal. It's not.
The premise that the U.S. government would tell you, all right, look, we're going to release these videos reluctantly. Lou Elizondo is the guy that got them released, and then the U.S. government formally released them a couple of months ago. The idea that the U.S. government would release it, the Pentagon says these are unidentified. And if it was a bird or a jet engine, the pilots would not have the kind of reaction that they had that you can hear on the audio. Our government does not tell members of Congress. The Pentagon doesn't go to the Senate Intelligence Committee, show them those videos, and say, yeah, it's unidentified if it isn't. And the reaction of the pilots, the fact that they were forced to release it to begin with, suggests there really is unidentified.
Complete.
Why do you think they've addressed it? Why do you think that they have addressed the fact they're studying these things? Why not just continue denying it?
I think they were forced to. And some props to Tom DeLonge. I know you guys had a pretty spirited conversation when he was here, but he created an organization. Lou Elizondo, who ran that program, came forward and brought with him those videos. I saw them 2 days after Lou Elizondo stepped on a stage with Tom and said, I was in charge of the program. He and Chris Mellon have been sort of the engineers of getting that story into the New York Times. That changed everything. As I said, the last 2.5 years, everything has turned on its head. The New York Times covers the story. The result is other media covered as well. They've been ignoring it forever, and that allowed people to keep these secrets. That pressure meant that people in Congress started asking questions. 2 days after the story came out, I interviewed Senator Harry Reid, who was the one who got the money to create that program. And he said his phone had been ringing off the hook from other members of Congress who are now suddenly interested. I didn't know there was a program they're telling me. How do we learn more about this? It started a series of closed-door briefings on Capitol Hill that continue to this day. Where the pilots like Dave Fravor were hauled before Congress, first in front of the staff of the Senate Intelligence and then Senate Armed Services, and then the elected members, these senators who get briefed on it, and they were impressed, and they wanted more pilots to come in. So it's been going on for 2.5 years, and 2 weeks ago, about a month ago now, the culmination of it. Senator Marco Rubio, who is now the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, drops his bill. And it's the budget, for the intelligence budget for the next year, and he includes a UFO provision in there. Congress wants to have a mechanism set up where we get regular briefings from the Pentagon on UFOs. That's an astonishing change of events. It's because the media pressure and then congressional interest, it made it more acceptable for everybody to pursue the subject matter. It's kind of out of the shadows, and the Pentagon has reacted in fits and starts. So sometimes, as they said in the New York Times, first they said it did, then they said it didn't. They've admitted Lou Elizondo worked on the program, then they said he didn't. They said that the OSAP, which was the other program, the mother program, that had nothing to do with UFOs, but it did. So they continue to sort of lie and obfuscate and muddy the waters. The fact is that there's too much momentum from media and Congress and the public.
Was directly because George wrote this book about a little place called Skinwalker Ranch, where the government was studying this property. That happened because of his book. Some DIA guys. Well, you should tell the story of
I visited that place.
Yeah, but right.
Yeah. I think you got a little misled.
Tell him how the government study started. From your work. It's fascinating.
So some of it stems back to Lazar. So we did that story in the series in '89. One of the first people to call me after that was a guy I'd never heard of before named Robert Bigelow, a billionaire. Calls me up and says, I was really interested in that. I've been interested in UFOs for a long time. Can I help you? Meaning, can he help fund me? I said, I work for a TV station. I don't need any help. But he was not to be deterred. He then reached out to Lazar. They had he started meeting with him and pumping him for information. And that really amplified Bigelow's lifelong interest in it. He created something called NIDS, the National Institute for Discovery Science, which he made a science advisory board of the best and the brightest in both the UFO field and the field of consciousness. So they're looking at two questions: is there life elsewhere in the universe? Is it here? And do humans survive after death? And he assembled this board, former CIA guys, 2 former astronauts, men who had walked on the moon, Dr. Edgar Mitchell, Dr. Hal Puthoff, physicist, psychologist, really a brilliant little think tank to take on these 2 topics. I was allowed to be a fly on the wall for someone all over the sun. And I told Harry Reid about it in 1996, and he said, "Can I go?" And so he showed up and sat in on the meetings, and he was kind of hooked. Harry Reid was the first person I told about Bob Lazar outside of our newsroom. Before we aired the stories, I'd known him since he first ran for Congress in 1982, and he becomes Senate Majority Leader. So he'd always had an interest in it, but he didn't want to be known publicly. That does not help your re-election chances. So in 2005, we write the book about Skinwalker Ranch. NIDS, that team, bought the ranch. They were on the property for 7 or 8 years at that point and had hundreds of different incidents that they investigated. They approached it like scientists would. They looked for prosaic explanations. They looked for gravity anomalies. They looked for psychoactive plants. Could there be hallucinations caused by magic mushrooms or something? Are the witnesses lying? They investigated the background of the family that had lived there. And they found out that it could not be explain all the range of activity there. So it was not only UFOs. Well, it starts with UFOs because that's what got their attention. The Uinta Basin in northeastern Utah has always been a UFO hotspot. Everybody who lives there basically has seen it. Balls of light, orbs, structured craft, daylight, nighttime. In 1976, a guy named Dr. Frank Salisbury wrote a book about it, the Utah UFO Display, and he took hundreds of these cases that have been collected by the locals. There was a local science teacher named Junior Hicks, who, because he had taught generations of kids science in that area, when people would see UFOs, they'd call up Junior Hicks. And he went and go and investigate them. And he had hundreds and hundreds of files. He gave them over to this guy Salisbury, who wrote a book about it. And he said, these are real, they're going on. But Junior Hicks would disregard any high strangeness cases that came along with the UFOs. Anything weird, Bigfoot, ghosts, anything like that, he thought it was too incredible, and he discarded that. Bigelow buys the ranch. He hears about these stories.
I heard somewhere here.
Flies in, meets with the rancher, and by this time, that rancher and his family had lived on the ranch for 20 months. And they were so scared that he, his wife, and his 2 kids were all sleeping at night on the floor in the same room because it had messed with them so badly. Their property had type activity, poltergeist kind of things, trickster activity. For example, the wife goes shopping to the grocery store. She buys all this food, comes back, puts it on the table, takes it out, puts it in the shelves, leaves the room, comes back in, all the food's back in the basket. She would take a shower in the morning, locks the door, puts a towel and a hairbrush on the cabinet, gets out of the shower, door's still locked, hairbrush and towel are gone. Dad's out in the field. He is digging up a post hole. Every piece of equipment. He stops for a second, looks back and it's gone. And they find it 2 weeks later up in a tree. They start hearing voices at night in the air, speaking a strange language. They start seeing shapes outside the window at night, big, lurking humanoid shapes. Hearing heavy footsteps outside, then hearing heavy footsteps inside. Then their animals started being mutilated. Cows.
So I'm the only one, yeah.
The tracks would lead out into the snow and then just be gone. Calves mutilated, cut up with surgical precision. Cats wiped out, cut up, carved up. Dogs that were vaporized. Hundreds of these incidents. They would see holes in the sky, like a great big hole in the sky, and things flying in and out of it. Now this rancher, college-educated guy, grounded, strictly religious guy, thinks the government is trying to run him off his property. So he's out there at night lurking with a gun trying to catch whatever government agents are doing this stuff. And it's not government agents. It was something else. They start seeing UFOs of all shapes and sizes. The first one they saw was they thought it was a Winnebago. This ranch is a beautiful place, and it only has one way in and one way out. They see these 2 lights that look like headlights down in the 3rd homestead. How did this guy get past the house here and get down there? He must be stuck. Let's go down and help him out. The lights start coming toward he and his son. Then they go up into the sky, up over the trees, and then poof, gone. these different kinds of orbs. The white ones that were intelligently controlled, not fireflies, not bugs. Blue ones that would go, they seem to touch the fear center in your brain. They'd get near them. They look like a little bigger than a softball, made out of glass with a swirling blue liquid. Scared the hell out of the animals, and then it scared the hell out of the people too. This literally drove them to their knees with fear. These red orbs that would stampede the cattle. They lost so many cattle that they began to think that they were going to go under. They had these 4 prized bulls. I know I'm jumping around, but there's a lot of stories. They had these 4 prized bulls, 2,000 pounds each, behemoths, very expensive animals because they were raising Simmental cattle. Had them in the corral, and the husband and wife, they always felt like they're being watched. He says to the wife as they're driving to town, "Man, if something happens to one of those bulls, we'll go under. We'll be done." They come back a half an hour later. All 4 of the bulls are gone. They jump out. They're freaking out. Where did they go? Did somebody steal them? Are they rustlers? Looking around all over the place. In this corral is a metal trailer where they used to store tools. And there's only one door into it, and it's locked with this heavy piece of wire. The door is still locked. The wire is still on there. The guy, just as a last resort, he looks into the grating on top of this trailer, and there's the 4 bulls inside. Door's still locked. They're all crammed in there. Now, you could take a forklift. You could have a team of 50 people, and they couldn't get those bulls in that trailer, but there they were. He yells to his wife, "Hey, honey, they're in here." And when he says that, the bulls wake up as if out of a trance, kicked the door down, and all got out. The NIDS team, which had been on the property for a couple of years at that point, fly in. They'd been in Las Vegas. They fly back in. They look around. They check out the animals. The whole corral, which is made out of metal, had been magnetized. So whatever technology was used to get those bulls from the corral into that trailer left a magnetic signature. They were there on the property, the NIDS guys, for several years. Bigelow owned it for 20 years. But eventually they gave up. Whatever this thing was, this intelligence, it did not like being stalked, and it played tricks on them. And they never made the stuff public because what are you going to do? Write a paper about this? Who's going to print it? You can't make a documentary about it because they weren't there with cameras.
Is there any evidence? So, well, all this we're saying, those cattle mutilations, I guess that's some evidence, but that's only evidence of cows, and we can mutilate cows. What about all this other stuff?
Like for the first 20 months when the rancher is there, they don't have any evidence because he's not a paranormal investigator. They're not taking photos or something. They want it to go away. So they don't have any evidence of that.
Have fun.
Except for what the rancher told them. But then they talk to the larger community. And the same thing has been happening to all the farmers. The guy who lives next door had lost all these cattle as well. Seized the craft. Sometimes these craft would float around. They looked like stealth fighters with Christmas lights around them, floating around silently.
Again, is there any evidence?
No, not really. I mean, so Bigelow puts up cameras.
You need more minerals.
All over the property.
In my day, we mined 8 minerals at a time.
Focused here where some activity had happened before. The thing moves over here. You move the property, the cameras are focused there. It goes away.
Like lots more.
Toward the end of the study, whatever it was that was there, one of these cameras was ripped to shreds. They're up on top of a telephone pole, 30, 40 feet in the air.
More minerals.
And there's wires
Can't buy stuff on credit in this
secured
game.
all the way down the telephone pole. And they noticed that one of their cameras goes out. They figure, well, there's another camera on another pole that should have a view of whatever it was that tore this up, some kind of animal or whatever. Well, whatever it was invisible. And I know it's very frustrating. It certainly was for them and for me to try to write about it, in that this thing didn't want to be caught. It wanted to demonstrate it that it was there, but it didn't want to have evidence. The calf that was mutilated was in, I know it's a lot.
Yeah.
The calf that was mutilated, it was a Sunday morning. It's 10 o'clock on a quiet morning. It's daylight. The rancher and his wife are there
Nobody's
by themselves.
scouting.
They're tagging newborn calf, tag their ears. And they tag this one right by the ranch house, 50 yards from their home. And they go off across the property. It's a clear day. It's unobstructed. Their dog is with them and makes a noise that points them back toward that first calf that they had tagged. And the dog indicates that something's wrong. And they see the mom cow is dragging its leg and going around in a semicircle. It's in distress. They go running back over there, and this calf had been completely stripped of flesh. Nothing left but a hide and bone. And one of the femur bones had been ripped out and thrown on the side.
Mine more minerals.
They call in the
You can't
NIDS
buy
guys,
stuff
they
on
bring in
credit in this
trackers.
game.
There are no tracks. There's no human tracks, no vehicle tracks, no animal tracks. The thing had been completely stripped of blood. There's not a
You
drop
have
of
not
blood.
enough minerals.
It's gone. 75 pounds of meat gone. Again.
Over a time period of
30 minutes. Is there a team of commandos that comes in and does that?
where's the
Special
blood
forces?
go?
Yeah.
And there's evidence of this?
Yeah.
Photographs?
Yeah.
Can we see that?
Yeah.
Where is it?
I made
Your
I
probes
made
are
a
under
movie
attack. Get him out of
called
there!
Skinwalker. It's in there, right? Is that the only place?
Yeah. It's probably
Your
some other
probes are
places.
getting
There's
wrecked.
photos and video.
I mean, so I'm with you, man.
What's the speculation about, like, why would they do this, and why would they do the cattle mutilations? Is there any speculation?
Some. So some of it is a
You need
demonstration.
more minerals.
I mean, it
My
seemed to
baby.
be a demonstration to get their attention. This trickster element has been reported
We
in other
require
places
more
around the
minerals.
world. There's no hotspot quite like Skinwalker, and I know how weird it sounds. There's no spot like
enough
that
minerals.
because there's no spot that's been studied to that
We
extent.
need more money.
The NIDS guys were there
minerals.
for, well, Bigelow owned the property for 20 years. NIDS was
Not
active for
enough
7 or 8.
minerals.
Then another secret study
We need
funded
more
by
money.
the government came in under an organization called BASS. That was the money that Reed got. He got $22 million. It went to Bigelow as a contract, and they hired all these people and fanned out all over the world to try to find UFO information, but other related phenomena.
Research
things
finished.
that wouldn't seem
Mine more
normally to be
minerals. You can't buy
connected
stuff on
to
credit in
UFOs,
this game.
but which are. A guy from the DIA had read the book and became interested, and he asked for permission to go to the property. This guy's a double PhD, a brilliant rocket scientist who had seen it
Not
and
enough
thought there
energy.
were national security implications. The hole in the sky, in particular, with things coming in and out. He wondered if someone was using technology to make these
Did they
things happen.
film that hole in the sky?
No. Again, that's when the rancher is there by himself. So he's not a UFO guy. He's not trying to.
I understand. But is there any evidence of anything weird? Anything other than mutilated cows?
Well, let's see.
Not enough
The video of the camera that was torn up by something invisible. They had something that
So in the video, you can see the camera being torn apart.
you can't see anything. You can't. There's nothing. You can't see anything. You can see before it happens.
Our allies are
it's
being
normal,
attacked.
and
Leave them
afterward,
alone.
So I think
How much time is taking place between before and after?
I can't remember. But I mean, could that be hoaxed? Yeah, if Bigelow wanted to. But again, they weren't there to, in the beginning at least for NIDS, they weren't there to try to prove that aliens are visiting. They're just trying to figure out why all this weird stuff is happening in one spot. It mixes in a lot of Native American lore that got mixed in the picture. But it's been going on in that Uinta Basin for 200 years.
Our allies' base is
Why?
under attack.
Don't know.
I mean, our government has studied the so like what is evidence? It's so frustrating to me too. When I was introduced to the Skinwalker thing through George, man, I'm with you. Like, what's the evidence? What's going on? The weight of evidence is when you talk to people in the area and they all have these commonalities. Some people died
Your
of
allies'
exotic
base is
cancers from burns
besieged.
from above, where lights came down and hit them, and that's evidence.
Research
Their
complete.
face is completely irradiated and they fucking died.
So there's the cows.
So
Your
so
allies'
you have a
base is under
scientist like
attack.
Dr. Colin
Time to
Keller.
carry.
Hold on for a
Your
second.
allies being
That's where
attacked.
they-
Oh no! Where?
Look at that.
Very good.
Just what in the fuck can...
Our allies'
What I
base
can
is
do,
under
what I
attack.
can do
They
here.
scan the area to look for another spot where people were slaughtered.
Our
before it was
allies are
moved to
being
this
attacked.
area.
Our
That's
allies'
what they
base is
concluded,
under
is it had
attack.
to have been taken somewhere and slaughtered and then brought back. But
Jamie,
who
can you
does
make
that?
that a little larger, please? Can you just zoom in on that? Because that doesn't look very surgical to me. That looks like wolves.
Yeah, it was. There's no.
Just
They actually did an analysis, and it was done with 2 types of metallic tools.
But look at all the jagged edges.
They said they took samples and they sent them to 2 pathology labs.
Uh-huh.
Didn't tell the guys what they're looking for. You tell us what you can see. And the pathologist said that 2 instruments had been used. One was a heavy machete type instrument that had been hacked, and then there is a scalpel that had surgically removed a lot of the flesh underneath.
It looks like something killed it and then they moved it to that spot. I mean, if I had to guess. The way it's eaten, though, I mean, it looks like it was eaten.
Well, there's no teeth marks. There are metallic marks. There's no teeth
Metallic,
mark.
meaning they
like
found-
a sliced.
Okay.
And
so something sharp sliced it.
So I think the bigger point is this was happening on this ranch with owners prior to owners prior to owners. I got to talk to a lot of people that knew. So here's the deal, the connection of this. So George does this thing, he reports on this for 20 years. The government is now studying this ranch, right, because of deployment or because of all this weird stuff. Why is the government spending money through OSAP to study this ranch and other things? And that's where it gets really fucking interesting. What happens after with our government programs? And that's what you know.
This is before we get to that. This image, like the jagged edges around the rib cage, that's supposedly sliced. That looks like hacked. Okay.
I mean, look, it could, let's say it's people doing this, you know, to farmers to get them out of there. Let's say it's some program. I mean, although the cattle mutilation thing, you gave me a stack of documents this big, has been studied by the FBI. It's happened all over the country.
Yeah.
No one has ever been caught, not a single person.
More than 10,000 cases.
With all the same types of cuts. I mean, this is not my expertise.
I've seen a lot of that. It's really weird.
There is another
really
theory.
weird, and the lack of blood is the weirdest part of it. Because what makes sense to me is that something killed that. They butchered it. They chopped all the meat off of it, and then they removed the carcass from that area and dropped it off there.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like, if I had to guess.
That's what NIDS thinks.
There's no way that it was killed right there because you're seeing fresh, clean hay underneath it everywhere. There's no blood, which doesn't make any sense at all.
I think the question is this a government program? Is this something, or is this a scare tactic? It's been happening since the 50s. Like, what
It's a weird scare tactic.
It's
Click on that one below it, Jamie, the brown one with the green. Yeah, that one, please. Thank you. That's a weird one, too. Like, there's like a hole cut out. And there's a bunch of these they found all over the country, and weirdness, like organs removed. But the weirdest part about it is it's almost always there's no blood.
Yeah, I just investigated one, which I never thought I would do, but I got a call from a guy in Texas.
You got to see it physically?
Yeah, so right before lockdown, I go out and I'm like, this is so wild, I got to check this out. The guy calls me, it's a pretty freshy one at this point. Now, I'm no expert, but I went and got samples and took them to labs and this sort of thing to see if there were tools used. So here's my experience.
Did you get pictures of this?
Yeah, I filmed
you
the
have
whole
it on your
thing.
phone?
I'll show you after. I got it on my phone. Yeah. So I got great fucking photos. Weird
Well,
shit.
listen, man, just airdrop them to me now, and we'll send them to Jamie, and we'll put it up on the screen so other people can see it.
Okay, so let me...
Yeah, after the show is not going to help us.
While you're
Come on,
looking, I'll
silly
tell him
goose.
about one of the theories about the cattle mutilations that Dr. Colin Kelleher developed was that somebody is tracking the spread of like mad cow prions through the food supply, and that they've been doing it under the guise of UFOs. Since no one would take UFOs and cattle mutilation seriously, they just do it in helicopters, and instead of just stealing these cattle, they're tracking how far these indestructible prions travel through the food supply, because it's in cattle,
Not
it's in
enough
pigs,
minerals.
it gets
Not
fed
enough
into
minerals.
chickens and things of that, and
Not
feed.
enough
It's in deer.
minerals. Not
It's called
enough
chronic
minerals.
wasting disease in some circles. It's just weird.
Well, chronic
It's just weird.
wasting disease that's a different prion disease than mad cow.
Well,
right?
it's a variation. Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease,
Additional
I think,
supply
too. So
details required.
the same kinds of things in different
Not
species.
enough minerals.
It is indestructible again. So you hit a deer that's got this, and you grind it up and you feed it to pigs. The pigs get it.
Not enough
And
minerals.
then it could be passed on to other species, and it shows up in different ways. Kelleher was exploring the idea, well, whether or not it might be the cause of Alzheimer's or a version of mad cow in humans.
Do you,
They're all going to you right now. This is a
I don't see
recent...
it.
Oh, it says downloading. So, I'm downloading them, and then
Oh, right. Are you on the Wi-Fi?
no, but it's coming through. Here you go. It's about to go to you. It says waiting.
What's going on?
I mean, I guess this does highlight, because this is my very limited amount of...
Can you send those to Jamie too? Jamie, can you
yeah,
put
are
your
you
airdrop on?
AirDrop, Jamie?
Sorry. Should have had to do that right away. It's ready to roll. His airdrop is ready.
Big job, huh?
There, yeah.
Insufficient
So
Vespine
this is
gas.
this is the
Insufficient
stuff that you
Vespine
physically
gas.
encountered.
Okay.
You physically saw this cow, and I'm looking at these images
In the
right
rear
now. We're
with
gonna
the
show
gear.
them Sure. In a second. And this is you said Texas.
Yeah. So
Where in Texas?
SCV ready.
I'm blanking. So here's the deal. Oh yeah, that's it. So I made the movie based on George's work of the same title, Hunt for the Skinwalker, right? And that movie was telling this story about how the United States government was studying this property of land because of UFOs and weird stuff. That and weird stuff included
Our
things like
allies
cattle.
are being attacked.
There's a lot of weird this, the skin removed around the face.
Right. So this
Our
was my
allies are being
This is
attacked.
my first chance to see this for myself. Last time I was on your
Insufficient
show,
Thespian
it was
gas.
the ones in Oregon had just happened up at that ranch, and I thought, well, okay, if I'm ever going to do it, now's the time to do it. So I go, I get this call. Now, remind me, this is a rancher. This is their livelihood. It's this huge, huge area of land.
That right there. Stop right there.
They're a very religious community. Nobody. We go out to the middle
Additional
of this
supply
land,
depots
and
required.
in the middle, there's this dead cow.
No blood.
No blood. And he had seen it prior, and the reason he called me is because in my movie you could see this special kind of slice, like a jagged slice that is
Add-on
common to these types
complete.
of things they think are real mutilations. And he was looking at it, he's like, that's exactly like in the movie. Now this is a straight shooter, he's a religious guy. He had to ask his pastor if he could even like go on camera with me.
Not
It freaks
enough
him out.
minerals.
So he sees this. Now he sees dead animals all the time.
And he saw this cow, you said, before?
Accidentally,
long?
he was out shooting BB guns with his kid, and he's on this big part of land, and he sees this down bull, and he goes over to it, and he's looking at it, and it's
Not
unlike
enough
anything he has
minerals.
ever seen in all of his years before. It had surgical
Not
cuts.
enough minerals.
There is no doubt
Not enough
somebody
minerals.
killed,
Bad news.
cut up this animal with
Not
those
enough
classic,
minerals.
like the ear gone, two types of tools,
Big
like a
job.
scissor type. But by the way, I tried to cut it. It is not easy to cut. So they had sharp tools, and then there's like a very
got coordinates
thin
or what?
slice kind of
Oh,
cut.
I'll get
So I
there.
got to take it, get samples, take
Moving
them
into
to labs,
busy.
and try to see
Systems
what type of
go.
tools did this.
Cyclone
How did
ready
they
for
do this with
action.
no blood on the ground? And all the soil around it was dead. So it was
Our
like, why
allies
is it all
are
dead?
being
Is that a
attacked.
natural thing? So I took soil samples and took them to a lab. And again, I'm outside of my
Adjusting for new.
this is weird to me.
Okay.
But I think that it's a real phenomenon. Somebody is killing these animals.
Something. Someone.
However you want to say it. Someone is killing these
Nothing
animals
else
in a highly specified technical
Not
way
enough
that has been
minerals.
repeated since the 50s on. Our FBI has studied it. He
Command
has shown
center
so many
upgrade
reports of
complete.
these in association
into
with
position.
discs, saucers.
Did
I
this
can't
guy have any association?
No, he's just a guy that owns the
So
land.
I just
allies
found this
are being
cattle
attacked.
that's
Freak.
weirdly mutilated.
Somebody killed it.
Yeah.
And he's
Insufficient
like, is this
Thespian
demonic?
gas.
Is this some sort of Satanist thing? And I said, I don't think so, man. This
Oh,
goes
I'll
back
get
in
there.
history.
Like I'm looking at the
Adjusting for new
cuts
coordinates.
specifically, they're very unimpressive.
What the-
That
Channel's
doesn't
clear.
look like a laser
Comms
did it
open.
or some
I can't
sharp scout.
No, it was like a serrated. One was a serrated tool.
In gear.
Oh,
Command center
absolutely.
upgrade.
You have to somehow do it though in
go.
Texas land, where the
Cyclone
guy
ready
would
for
shoot
action.
you in the face if you go and try to
Comms
touch one of
open.
his cows. See, that's the other thing.
Online.
No one's ever been
Let's go
caught.
kill some
Never.
things.
Since
That's what's weird.
yeah.
It's
It's
frustrating
Adjusting
too.
for
I mean,
new
I've been to the
coordinates.
ranch, the Skinwalker Ranch in the basin, more than 24 times. I've never seen any. I've interviewed the neighbors,
Show
I've
me who you
interviewed
want
the
to
scientists.
die.
These are PhD
Moving
level
into
guys who have seen
position.
this stuff. A
Cyclone
lot
en
of times
route.
they have cameras that fail. I mean, it's, you know, you've heard that story
Nothing will
before.
stop me.
It's very convenient
Moving
that it
into
happens just when some
position.
giant
Systems
disc
go.
shows
Our
up, but it
allies
does
are
happen.
being
That
attacked.
their car batteries would
In
die in the
gear.
same spot.
No.
Whatever it was messed with them. And maybe it's humans, maybe it is human technology, but no humans were ever found to be doing this stuff. NIDS was there for all those years. They didn't want to tell anybody about it. They shared the information with me, but you can't publish it. There's no real physical proof, so they just left it there. And I had tried to do a documentary.
What's going on?
Ended up, I talked to them into let me write a book about it. But
Yep.
if people, if you're looking for physical evidence and solid proof, and they don't have it.
What's the primary are there any primary theories of why they do this to cows? Why someone's doing this to cows?
You know,
You need to catch somebody and ask them. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, that's
That's really
look, man.
really weird that no one's been caught.
Investigate the unexplained, don't explain the uninvestigated. That's what he always says. And it's like, I wouldn't think I would ever be interested in this, but someone calls you and says they got a fresh cattle mutilation and they're associated with the UFO phenomenon. Sure, I'm gonna look into it. What I find more interesting is what's happening now with the government study that started here at Skinwalker Ranch, also the one that was in the New York Times, and where the information is going now. These are new times. Things are starting to drop to the public.
In the rear with the gear. What's going on?
Well,
I'm going.
The Skinwalker story, lack of physical evidence though there may be, comes to the attention of the Defense Intelligence Agency. This guy, this scientist who sees it, he goes to Bigelow, they go visit the property, he looks around, he has an experience. He's not there 15 or 20 minutes and something appears inside a house that only he can see. He doesn't say anything about it. Goes back to Washington, meets with Harry Reid in a skiff in the Capitol, and 2 other U.S. senators. He presents them the proposal for a study of UFOs and related phenomena. Not just like ATIP, looking at flying saucers that encounter U.S. military, but something more expensive. They put out a contract. Bigelow bids on it, creates an organization called BASS. Again, puts together a team of experts. 50 or 60 employees, and they start studying it. They go around the world, they interact with other governments, they get their files, they send out teams to hotspots to try to figure it out, looking at whether there are connections between what we'd call flying saucers, possible aliens, and all these other different phenomena. The program goes on for a couple of years, and somebody yanks the funding. And get this, the reason that the DIA suddenly became worried about all this weirdness that was being reported at Skinwalker and elsewhere is because they thought it was demonic. And they thought, if this comes out that we're studying this weird phenomena, A, it's going to end up in the front page of the New York Times, which it did, and B, we might be invoking Satan here. These were fundamentalist Christians in the Pentagon who pulled the money because they thought it was the devil. I'm not making that up.
Mineral field depleted.
And the program, it now continues. They keep reporting that it stopped. It has stopped. The U.S. military has been studying UFOs since the beginning in every branch of our military. They continue to do so. And now every time they get caught in a lie,
So, OSAP's money was taken away. But the ATIP program, which is what Lou Elizondo headed up, that looked just at military UFO encounters, Pentagon says it did not. It continued for a couple of years, and after the New York Times story comes out and creates this furor, it got funded, and it now has a structured organization, and it is looking into cases where the U.S. military sees these things. And off the coast of Virginia, they've been seeing this stuff in the beach balls with and they were sitting there for hours right where our warplanes would go out for training exercises as if they wanted to be seen. And it went on. There were 70 or 80 witnesses during 2015. Some of them talked about solid footing. To look into reports of what was arsenic, crash retrievals, reverse engineering, the existence of these metamaterials, bits and pieces that grandpas stashed in Mars. Figure out there's something about these materials that we could not. So the BASS program, the OSAP program, created a baseline of what we know about the state of our technology right now in different disciplines. Lift and propulsion, things of that sort. They commissioned 38 papers. That would be the baseline for what the state of human knowledge was in 2009. And those papers were published on an internal Department of Defense website, but they've never been made public. 6 of them have now leaked out. And I brought along 2 more for you that have not been made public.
Scientific reports based on the government study of UFOs. Okay, so they commissioned these papers. Only a handful have been released to the public. George has
a couple more. So you're going to be the first person outside of the program other than me to see it.
What is it?
They're called a DIRD. This is a Defense Intelligence Reference Document. This paper is on metamaterials. So how you can engineer existing Earth materials where you can duplicate. These papers, 2 of them actually mention 2009.
And they reference aliens and UFOs?
Only two of the papers do.
And how do they reference them?
Well, there's one of the papers that looks at the physical effects. And it's sort of like the effects of radiation or microwaves or physical effects on the investigated, and that's what that paper looks at. And that's all
Yeah, the harm that is done to the body, what they call universal proximity field, which is a
Our allies'
UFO.
base is
There are
under
known
attack.
effects to the body that are horrible, and they're studied
Our allies are being attacked.
and then how it affects these
Insufficient
reports, as
Thespian
he obtains
gas.
them or as people find them, they're very illuminating what our government thinks.
There was one that looked at how you would track a hypersonic vehicle traveling through space, how difficult it is.
Our allies are being
How would you
attacked.
track that? Now, when that paper was written, now it's very timely because we're in a rush. So that was last year, and I interviewed the engineering professor who wrote
Upgrade
it. He wasn't
complete.
writing about UFOs. He was writing about the state of knowledge about
Insufficient
hypersonic weapon
Thespian
systems
gas.
back then.
Our
It's a similar
allies
thing
are
for
being
metamaterials.
attacked.
That's what this
Mineral
paper
field
is. How
depleted.
would you engineer materials so you could travel through
Yes,
space
Commander.
that would have, say, you shoot
In
it
the
with
rear with the
microwaves,
gear.
and it could develop certain special properties. So
Just to put into context, maybe, because, here's the deal. Our government has now
Mineral
admitted there
field
are
depleted.
UFOs. That's the world we're living in. They're unidentified
Our allies
objects
are
or
being
craft
attacked.
that seem to outpace, outmaneuver,
Acknowledged.
actively jam our radar systems, even go over our military. All of this is nonsense. It's a different world we're living in. However,
Our
the
allies
next
are being
thing that
attacked.
people are talking about now is, well, we also have the
Yo!
we'll call them
Mineral field
metamaterials.
depleted.
Materials associated with UFO craft. They might
Our
even go as
allies
far
are
as to
being
say
attacked.
we have whole materials
Our allies are being
from
attacked.
somewhere else.
So when they're saying we have materials associated from
Insufficient
crafts, are they saying
Thespian
that
gas.
they craft?
yes, who was a physicist
Mineral field
who worked
depleted.
with Bigelow on both MIDS and BATS, made a presentation in Las
Our
Vegas
allies
in
insufficient
June of
Thespian gas.
2018, where he says, yeah, we've got these
Our
materials,
allies are
and we're
being
trying to figure out
attacked.
where they came from. Some of them appear to be multi-layered and beyond what is known engineering capabilities of humans. It looks like they would have had to have been
Thespian
made in,
gas are
say, zero
exhausted.
gravity of space. We don't have any manufacturing. He implied that they came from
Insufficient
crashes.
Thespian
Doesn't mean it's a
gas. Our
UFO
Thespian
from
gas is
Zeta
our allies
Reticuli. It's
are being
crashed from
attacked.
somewhere,
Our
and we don't know whose it is.
SCVs are
So
under attack.
they're trying to
Our
figure out
allies' base
whether we
is
can do
under
it.
attack.
And I got a bunch of sense. Stuff I haven't seen.
I see what people claim. So the Army now has
Insufficient
these
Thespian
metamaterials
gas.
that were famously put into the first show, physical arts parts. I told you this last time. I did. I was able to obtain them briefly and have 5 scientists in the
Our
United States.
allies are being attacked.
Material scientists, physicists,
allies are
interrogate,
being
as they
attacked.
say, the samples for numerous days.
Our allies'
I
base
don't
is
believe
under
that I
attack.
had access to the best equipment.
Yes,
we
sir.
didn't find anything extraordinary.
You hail?
Other people have. So right now the Army has
So
a
when you say you didn't find anything extraordinary,
Base
did you
is
find
under
anything
attack.
ordinary?
Our allies' base
No, they
is
weren't
under
ordinary.
attack.
These are the materials here?
So that's the exact one of the exact pieces that I had in my hands and worked with my team, and I filmed it all. But right now, because of TTSA, they've made a deal with the Army, and I think the Army has these parts. But I feel like we're missing the big note here. The big note is, a few years ago, UFOs are still laughable. Military doesn't look after that. Turns out we have
Insufficient
programs that
Thespian
do.
gas. Our
I'm
allies'
suspecting
base
that maybe you can
is
talk
under
more
attack.
about it. The next piece of information is that there are reverse
Mineral
engineering
field
programs,
depleted.
which will then make everybody have to look at the ghost story a
Base
little bit
is under
differently
attack.
once again. We are trying to reverse engineer either materials
Upgrade
or actual
complete.
craft from
Our
somewhere
allies'
else,
base
intelligently
is under
designed
attack.
metals or crafts.
Roger.
For vehicles that we don't know where they're from. Even
Our
even
allies'
more
base
different.
is under
Right, but
attack.
isn't that a big if? I mean, if they...
It's It's an interesting point.
It is, but I mean, there's no indication that they're willing to
Insufficient
discuss
Vespene
some
gas.
retrieved craft, right?
Yeah, I
Is
think
there?
that's a heavy lift. So supposedly the New York Times is working on that story. I think it'd be pretty hard for
More
them
than
to.
supposedly.
Big job.
Yeah, they are. They've been asking about this stuff, but I mean, to get that into print, that's for hard
Alleged extraterrestrial material from the bottom of a wedge-shaped craft in the late 1940s made of 26 alternating layers of 1
Our
to
allies'
4
base is
microns
under
dark
attack.
bismuth. Is that how you say that?
Bismuth.
Bismuth.
Our allies'
And 100
base
to
is
200
under attack.
microns of silver, magnesium, zinc, alloy.
Insufficient
Each of the 6
Vespene
species
gas.
received materials from sources
Our
of foreign
allies are being attacked.
armature that take
Basically, we're saying there's no process
Our
that would create
allies are
this
being
alloy layered in that type of layer system. I actually have a piece out about
Command
this.
center upgrade complete.
samurais.
Our allies are being
alien of any
attacked.
kind, but it is a bunch of.
Our
Samples of things
allies'
associated with
base
crash
is under
people.
attack.
So if anybody
Our
has
allies are
this
being
stuff is
attacked.
being scientifically
Insufficient
interrogated right
Vespene
now, and
gas.
his studies do show isotopic ratios that are not from this earth, so he's confident with his research. My big point.
What's going on?
His research
Our
of what?
allies are being
Well,
attacked. Our
you have to
allies'
talk.
base
You
is
should
under
talk to
attack.
Jacques, but he.
Right, but what is he confident of that you can say
That he has alloys that came from
Our allies' base
UFO
is under attack.
crashes
Insufficient
or,
Vespene
runoff.
gas.
Has anybody
Base
independently
is under
analyzed
attack.
those things?
Yeah,
and
he's got
agreed?
whole teams of people.
Well, how come
Our
this isn't like
public
public
being
knowledge? Why
attacked.
isn't
Our
this being
allies'
done?
base is
You gotta
under
get, you
attack.
gotta get, you gotta talk to Jacques. Get up there.
Our allies are being
Yeah.
attacked.
I would probably have to go to him, right? With a hazmat
he's
suit.
Insufficient
He's
Vespene
Where's he
Dude,
gas.
he's strong, dude.
Big job, huh?
San Francisco.
In the rear with the gear.
What's the address? Yeah.
Here's the thing. This program is ongoing. It doesn't have to find aliens. There are
Insufficient
legitimate national
Vespene
security
gas.
reasons to be looking at who's flying these craft. These
Right.
things are still being seen
Our
over our
allies
military
are being
installations,
attacked.
and our Pentagon
Mineral
wants to know
field
who's flying them,
depleted.
and that's a perfectly legitimate inquiry,
Yes, Commander.
regardless of little green men. No one wants to say there at the Pentagon that we're investigating UFOs and aliens. They're just investigating where
allies'
these
base
things come
is
from.
under attack.
Are they a
Mineral field
threat?
depleted.
Can we duplicate
Our
that
allies'
technology?
base is
If the
under
Russians or the
attack.
Chinese get this stuff before we do, if they can do what the Tic Tac did, it's a game changer. So they want to know whose it
Our
is and how we can
SCVs are
duplicate it,
under
and that
attack.
is a perfectly legitimate inquiry whether they're aliens or not.
What is the most
Our
compelling piece of
allies are
physical
being
evidence
attacked.
to you?
Insufficient Vespene gas.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that we have physical
Our
evidence other than
SCVs are under
if
attack.
Bob Lazar's story is true, we've got
Our
craft out there
allies
that
are
we didn't
being
make.
attacked.
I mean, the idea that we have stuff for
Our
reverse
allies
engineering
are
to
being
figure out
our
how
allies'
it was
base
made,
is under attack.
that would be
Our SCVs are under attack. Our allies' gas is our allies are being
Intent
attacked.
to debunk all of these stories and come up with some
Our
sort of
allies are
rational
being
explanation that you could pass off to the general public. And as time went
Our
I thought
allies'
that was
base
really
is under
fascinating.
attack.
And after Project
Our
Blue Book
allies
closed,
are being
he was very
attacked.
open and public about
I'll give you one of his cases.
Our allies'
Project
base
Blue Book.
is
It's
our
April
allies
18th,
are being attacked.
1962. The original explanation is a meteor. It comes into an atmosphere over Cuba. It goes all the way up the east coast of the
Our
U.S.
allies
When
are
it gets to
being
New York,
attacked.
it turns left. It takes a left turn. Goes all the way across the United
Our
States.
insufficient
And a couple of
Vespene
places
gas.
it slows
Mineral field
down.
depleted.
It's picked up on radar. Jets are chased after it. They can't catch it. Keeps on going. It's the Utah, a little town called Eureka, and it lands. It lands in Utah, knocks out the towers and the whole thing. Then it takes off. It's over near Mesquite, Nevada. and
Our
explodes.
allies are
And this
being
thing,
attacked.
the explosion was seen
Mineral
for hundreds of
field
miles. I saw it in
depleted.
Las Vegas and Reno. And it was out there to look
Our
for pieces.
allies
They
are
thought it might have
being
been an
attacked.
airplane that exploded. Supposedly never found it. A meteor that travels, takes a left turn, slows down, and shoots
Our allies are being attacked.
The best evidence for me is that one of those places where
Our
all the
allies are
answers aren't
being
there.
attacked.
I I want to
Mineral
know.
field depleted.
So the
Insufficient
best evidence for
Vespene
me, 'cause
gas.
I asked that same question to everybody. It's the fact that we're being lied to. That alone,
Our
we can
allies
prove
are
that.
being
We can
attacked.
prove that
Mineral
our government
field
intelligence
depleted.
agencies have actively partaken in lying to us about the UFO subject. That there are craft of unknown origin that fly with impunity in our airspace globally and throughout history. And so the fact that they are lying and have been lying, that makes me, I'm like, why are you lying to me then? I
Our
want to find
allies
out.
are being
So
attacked.
for me, that's the greatest evidence that there's scientific studies
Our allies'
on this
base
stuff.
is under
and
attack.
everybody's hush the fuck hush about it.
Our allies
Why?
are being
Is it
attacked.
like North Korea had leapfrogged us 50 years ago, so all of a sudden,
Our allies'
that's our
base
enemy?
is
I mean,
under
who
attack.
is operating this craft? It comes from outer space, drops down to sea level, docks. With a military jet, you've got to be dead. Seriously. So that's the greatest evidence to me.
Our allies
Population,
are being
and we're
attacked.
just starting to peel back layers.
Well, if we haven't been lied
Our
to, at the
allies'
very
base
least, they
is
haven't
under
felt it.
attack.
Well, if they don't have real evidence other than this stuff, this is all they have. I don't know what they would tell the general public. That's also part of the problem.
Yes. What do you?
Our allies
you
are
know,
being attacked. Our allies'
As I
base
said, this is an
under
amazing
attack.
time. We're getting closer to knowing
Our
what the
allies
government
are
knows,
being
but that doesn't
attacked.
mean we'd have an answer. I don't think they know either.
That was always my take on it. It was like, why would they talk to the government? Like, they're from another planet.
Our allies'
Weird
base is
territorial
under
chimps
attack.
with nuclear
Our
weapons.
allies are
What
being
would
attacked.
you? Why would you pick one ghostly as opposed to just the general public? Why would you elected leaders? Would they really be important to you? Like, it doesn't make
Our
any sense at
allies
all.
are
Yeah, I
being
never
attacked.
really bought into the stories that there'd been a formal meetings or anything. I think
No.
the government
Our
is as
allies
clueless as
are
the rest
being
of us. They have more information because they have the sensors to collect it. They have a giant apparatus,
Our
sensors that
FCVs
detect
are
things
under
coming in and
attack.
out of space,
well, I can
radar, somewhere this giant pile of information that we haven't been able to see. But it doesn't mean that it answers the question. This thing has been with humans throughout history, and it's always just tantalizingly out of reach. You know, it used to be over the shoulders, and then it'd be swords, flaming chariots, and now it's flying saucers.
allies
And it
are
looks
being
like
under
technology
attack.
that maybe we could someday achieve, but it's always out of reach, and I think it will remain.
Our
One thing
allies'
that Bob
base
talked
is under
about
attack.
from some of the
Our allies are being
and
attacked.
that is, to me, the very ugly. If you wanted
Our
to say, like,
allies' base is under attack.
what's the thing's going to get people to roll their eyes the most? Well, you would say, well,
Insufficient
that the
Vespene
aliens
gas.
came down here and over the lower optics and accelerated the evolutionary process.
Our allies'
People-
base
a lot of
is
people
under attack.
Get the fuck out of here. That's
Our
crazy.
allies
But
are
if you
being
look at
attacked.
people, one of the weird things there, not like any other animal, like other than dogs. And dogs are the way they are because we fucked with them, because we manipulated them. And we are the dogs of the rest of the world. You know, I mean, if you really think about it, we're so different.
Our
There's not even
allies'
anything
base
close
is
to
under
us.
attack.
And I know there were some other,
Our
right?
allies
There's
are being
Neanderthals,
attacked.
Homo floresiensis, there's a bunch of other and us, the leap between them and us is so quick.
Our
The
allies'
doubling of the
base
human
is
brain
under
size
attack.
over a period of 2 million years.
allies are
tearing
being
monkeys
attacked.
apart and eating them alive. They're still doing the same things they've been doing for thousands and thousands of years. Whereas whatever has happened to humans has happened so the advancement is so unique. It's so different than any other animal. if we really have been visited since the beginning of time, since history, if all those biblical stories and all the stories from the Bhagavad Gita and all these ancient texts that do talk about Vimanas and flying crafts and beings that come down from upon high, if all that really is
Our allies
aliens
are being attacked.
intervening with the biological evolution of human beings, how fucking weird are
Insufficient
we?
Vespene gas.
You know, I mean, if you think about how weird we are, period, I mean, maybe that would kind of explain that we're some stupid science experiment.
Well, you know, people say, I want disclosure, I want to know, we're ready, we can handle it.
You scared me.
Are you sure?
You can't handle the truth.
I mean, are you sure you can handle it? Because we don't know exactly what it is that can be disclosed, but what if it turns out that we're an agricultural product? You know, that we are being harvested for something, or we're being allowed to breed and kind of a science experiment. Let's see where this goes. And then when it's time to end the experiment, I mean, I'm not sure people can handle it. Look at how they've handled COVID.
Well, look, if you would think about if aliens coming
Our
down
allies'
and
base is
interfering
under
with
attack.
weapon systems, and interfering with nuclear launch codes and things along those lines, like if you think about an uptick in
Our
alien
allies are being
sightings and
attacked.
activity post
Our
Hiroshima
allies
and
are being
Nagasaki,
attacked.
that would kind of make sense. Like, all right, these fucking dickheads,
Our allies'
they've gotten to a
base
point
is
where
under
they can
attack.
do some really crazy shit, and they literally might
Insufficient
ruin this whole.
Vespene gas.
Figured out how to
Like if you take this primate, this animal, and you embed it with weaker but smarter, far more curious, and obsessed with innovation, you just leave it there. Well, it's just a matter of time. Like, how much is that time? Is it 1,000 years? Is it 10,000 years? Over time, they're going to figure out some crazy shit. Because they're just going to keep working together
Our
like they do.
allies are being
And then,
attacked.
boom, bombs go off. And they're like, all right, we got a signal. These
Our allies' base.
crazy
Our
fucks
allies
have
are
figured
being
out how to
attacked.
split the atom. We got to get down there and keep a closer eye on these people.
Our
I mean, it's
allies
not
Not
are
the
being
craziest
attacked.
idea.
No, there's crazier ones.
The Big Bang is crazy. Whole
Our
universe came out
allies
of
are
nothing.
being attacked.
Smaller than the head of a pin, instantaneously creates everything you see in the night sky.
The technology that shows up that may be reverse engineered
Level.
after bits and
Not enough energy.
I don't know that we'll ever.
Well, more than that would be like, let's
Our
take a
allies are
chimpanzee.
being attacked.
Let's manipulate its
Our
brain
allies'
and leave
base
it with a bunch
is
of
under
tools.
attack.
You know, give it some things and see where it's from. You know, come back and try again. Maybe Neanderthal was like, well, they're not going to get
Our allies
we need to
are being
scrap it.
attacked.
Start with
Our
something new. I
allies'
don't
base
think that's
is
not.
under attack.
Look, we do weird shit. We study them all. We, you know, just talking how bummed out I was when I went to this wolf
Insufficient Vespene gas.
sanctuary. Because that was like an old big rescue. I got there, so I didn't think it was cool at all. It freaked me out. I got really surprised. What we're
Insufficient
willing to do
Vespene
to
gas.
chimps. I mean, I remember going to it was a small
Insufficient.
cage.
Our allies'
People were
base
walking
is
around.
under
He's like,
attack.
probably doing that. This is
Our
not how a
allies
monkey's
are
supposed to
being
live. They're supposed to be in the jungle, in the wild.
That's
You
not
know,
good.
harvesting food and living with other monkeys. They're not supposed to be alone in a
Insufficient
cage
Vespene
where
gas.
these other weird primates
Mineral
walk by
field
and stare
depleted.
at it. And it just overwhelms all of its defense systems and survival systems. We're willing to do that to things that we know are at least slightly intelligent. Like, what would be willing to do weirder, more advanced experiments to primates to create us?
And how do you tell a population, if you do study UFOs as the government and you find out, okay, shit, they're a craft and they're coming in, they're probably studying us. Like, how do you fucking tell people that? Like, how are people going to react? And the way that it's
Vespene
so
Geyser
compartmentalized,
exists.
that's
Our
been the
allies
best
are
proof to
being
me as
attacked.
well. if I've talked to somebody who's
Insufficient
worked on a
Vespene
project
gas.
and they're like, all I saw was a supercomputer in 1974, and I know this was not a day. Technology that was more efficient than anything he had ever seen. So the idea that people are funneling information,
Our
whoever
allies
it
are being
is,
attacked.
and protecting this information as we see that Ancient didn't get special access information. They knew about
Mineral
special
field
programs.
depleted.
So they said, we want to compare notes and information with other programs.
The door was slammed in their face. I tried to ask that. Senator Reid,
Insufficient
who was Senate
Vespene
Majority
gas.
Leader, had asked for permission to create it as an SAP, Special Access Program, so they could get access to other goodies, and they said no.
Like
this is-
other retrieval programs, material programs, stuff that Bob has talked about. So just
Vespene
they won't
geyser
allow this
exhausted.
scientific team to work on this
about one group worked on the propulsion. They didn't share information.
Just came off so bad.
Well, it was what we described. Without
Not
the scientific
mineral
method.
field
They
depleted.
were trying to withhold information that could only get them to concentrate on one aspect of the project without the whole group coming together and just
Our allies are being
and he
attacked.
didn't have the right materials.
They probably knew that we just really have no idea, especially if we get assume they had it. They probably found out the best scientists that they could, and they realized that no one. Let's get this out of the box weirdo with jet engines and
Our
Hondas.
allies are
Let's
being
get
attacked.
some straight. Look, there's a lot of very
Mineral field
strange people out there
depleted.
that are incredibly intelligent that might not fit into your standard bundle category of research scientist or whatever. He might just be a weirdo who likes to shoot guns and make
Our
hydrogen-powered
allies
Corvettes.
are being
Maybe that's the
attacked.
kind of guy that's going to see something that maybe other folks haven't seen yet.
I think that's very possible. It's also possible that they feel let's bring this guy in, show him some stuff, let him spout it out, and we'll cut his legs.
Yeah, but the problem is the reason why he spouted it out was so clear that they wanted to do that.
Our allies
It was
are being
his wife
attacked.
having an affair. Find out that the wife is banging her flight instructor. And so they
Nice.
say, listen, this guy's going to be unstable. We can't have him work there anymore. They suspend his working privileges, and he freaks out. And then he takes people to see the launch sites. He takes a look. They do this at a certain time period every week. I'm going to take you down there. He takes his friends down there. They get busted. They get arrested. It's just the actual verifiable facts of his being caught, the whole phone call thing, the fact that his wife was having the affair. There's no way they're playing that kind of 4D chess. This is the fucking
Right.
government. They're
Dude,
too goofy.
If I found out that Bob Lazar was lying to the world, I would be the first person to tell you. There's no reason I wouldn't. That was the whole reason I got interested. That's why I contacted George back in the day. I
Yeah.
wanted to know if he was fucking making it up with Bob. And I'll attest to you for whatever you value my opinion at. I have been with Bob in his life, met everybody, his family. The closer you get to his inner circle, the more you understand that he's telling the truth. And never once have I found something where I'm like, you're a fucking liar. Never once.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. Like, the only thing that people kept pointing to in the podcast was that he was getting migraines.
But, dude,
and I
he
was like,
had a
look,
migraine.
he had migraines. He had migraines earlier in the day. I mean, it wasn't, and you could tell he would stop and he would wince. And, he just didn't like the idea that he was going to do this thing that he knew that millions and millions of people were going to see him talk about this for hours and hours. And he knew it was all going to come back up again. All the investigation, all the people fucking with him, all the attention that he had avoided. Another important point is this is not a guy who profited off of this story.
No.
This guy told this story for 31 years and didn't profit off of it.
The migraine might have been the McDonald's. His wife was furious at me because when I brought him over, I was like, just get some in your stomach, man. So I think it was bad food.
Well, it could have been that and the pressure, but the pressure is
the
not
pressure was deep
innocuous.
because he didn't know you. He didn't know if you were just gonna start asking him about his wife cheating on him, and it's like. Right. It's stressful, man. I mean,
listen, I get it, man. I mean, that was one of the good reasons why we had dinner the night before with my buddy Andrew Schultz. And I brought Andrew along, too, because he's a really smart guy. And I said, just please, just pay attention to this motherfucker. Tell me what you see. Just if you see some bullshit, if you see some weirdness, let me know.
What'd he say?
Nothing. He said, I don't know. Yeah. He goes, if that guy's telling the truth, that is fucking crazy. Because Andrew's a comic, but a really good one and a really smart guy.
Smart, yeah.
So I just wanted... again, outside the box, have some guy who's not obsessed with UFOs at all. Have him come. And, and Andrew asked a bunch of questions.
Andrew was at the bar before, when Bob and I arrived, we go up to the bar. I didn't know who Andrew was, right? And then Joe walks in, hey, Andrew, and he had been sitting right next to us. So if Joe was putting spies out, that was a good move. But, it's so frustrating. It's fun, and I think I would have stopped. But George's been doing this 30 years. It's like you always get one step forward. And look, we all want to know if this stuff is true, but the weight of the evidence is so heavy now with the government programs and everything that you've been involved with. It's just an exciting time. And I think I learned more in this last year than all the time before. And I think that's going to continue. I don't think we're all of a sudden going to say, okay, this doesn't matter anymore. If this is real.
Yeah.
I'm not counting on any answers anytime soon. We may know more about what the government knows, but that's not the ultimate answer. I mean, what if it turns out these are not aliens, they live here? There's some other intelligence that we can't see. They can reach in like rats in a cage and pull us out once in a while or do experiments to us, and it's their planet. And we're living in this tiny slice of reality and don't realize what's going on around us.
There's a UFO. There's a UFC fighter, a woman named Angela Hill. She's a badass, and her grandfather is Barney Hill.
Oh shit!
Oh shit! And I didn't know until after the podcast. Her and I did a podcast together, just talking about her fighting career, and then at the end of it, she goes, "Oh, there's one thing I forgot to bring up." This is like after the show's over. I'm like, "What? How did you forget to bring that up?" That is so crazy. Her grandfather is one of the most important characters in the history of UFO abduction. Betty and Barney Hill, who were a couple in New Hampshire.
Yes.
Maine or New Hampshire?
New Hampshire. Sure,
New Hampshire. And they get abducted and through hypnotic regression tell this crazy story of they lost time, their car stops, this UFO shows up, and then they have this classic abduction story that we have heard time and time again. And I had this conversation with someone where they were saying, do you believe in these UFO abductions? And I said, I don't believe in them, but I don't not believe in them either. I just keep a blank slate with this because their take was like, wouldn't you think more people would talk about it, I go, why would they do it that often? I go, how many unique occurrences would have to take place before it would be common knowledge? How many times would people have to be abducted before you would believe? And what would they get out of these abductions? And look, we know what we're willing to do with chimpanzees or gorillas or any other primate, orangutans that we find in the wild. They run experiments on them. They capture them. They do things to them all the time. Why wouldn't something that's infinitely more intelligent than us abduct two folks that are driving somewhere, Betty and Barney Hill? Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they experiment on them? There they are right there.
And these are people that don't want attention. I mean, it's a interracial couple back in was it 50s or 60s?
Right, but it was probably in a lot of parts. I mean, it wasn't until I found out until 1967 or 68, like while I was alive, that interracial couples were allowed to marry in the entire country. So Betty and Barney Hill, it's kind of funny when I'm looking at Barney, he does kind of look like Angela.
Oh, you see the genetic.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just looking into it.
Have you seen the Unsolved Mysteries one on abductions, the new Unsolved Mysteries reboot?
No.
Oh, dude. Great case.
The
Episode
other case
5.
that fascinates me, besides this one, but that one surely fascinates me because it's the original, but Travis Walton.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a weird one, man.
It's a solid one too. I mean, I've met Travis a few times, and his story, like
Well, we'll
ours,
finish today with
doesn't
that
have
round.
There are additional witnesses. What he went through is comparable to Bob. I mean, he was called a liar, and basically, I think his friends were accused of murdering him, and that's a solid case. I mean,
it's a really weird one too.
Another great case. So I met two of the girls, Salma and Liesel. And you remember that
Not enough
school where
minerals.
like 80 kids or
Not
something,
enough
like it's some parts
minerals.
wrong. 80 kids saw these craft come down, and the BBC came the next day with Dr. John Mack, head of Harvard Psychiatry.
And he's the one who wrote that book, Abduction,
Yeah,
which I read.
This is what got him
Yeah.
like. So these kids see this craft come down South Africa and
Additional
aerial
supply
school.
depots required.
And I actually got to spend a weekend with two of the primary witnesses. One that was 3 feet away from me. She's telling me there was a being there. When you hear what
What's
happened,
going
now
on?
the
Not
BBC
enough
did film it the
minerals.
next day. You did have Dr. John Mack going and testing all the kids and trying
Not
to see
enough
consensus what
minerals.
they saw. But when I met these two women later in life,
Not
I
enough
can't
minerals.
dismiss what they're telling me. It's like you
Well,
telling me
Pest
you went
Factory.
to the grocery store. Why am I going to doubt you, man? That's how matter of fact.
Exar
they are.
can
They don't
can
know
explain.
what they saw,
It's no problem with them.
but they know exactly what they saw. They just don't know the implications of it.
Well, John Mack experienced a lot of blowback from that book.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, you're talking about a guy who's was he employed at Harvard at the time?
He's head of Harvard Psychiatry.
Yeah, and so he writes this book about UFO abductions. And I actually found out about it from my friend Maura, who worked with me on News Radio with Dave Foley. She actually was reading the book. She's like, this is right up your alley. She goes, it's so crazy. Like, I didn't know what to think. Somebody recommended it. But along the way, she's like, these stories are so similar. It's crazy. Like, all these different people that don't know each other from all over the world that have really similar stories. Like, if this thing
Not
is happening,
additional supply
again,
On the way, on the way, on the way.
how would anyone know, and how many times would they have to do it?
You
and
go one
why
tank and
would
seconds.
it be common knowledge? Like if they have the ability to come here from another galaxy or another solar system, and they can penetrate our defenses and hover
Our
over
allies
a
are
place
being
and
attacked.
abduct someone and run experiments on them and put them back there with some sort of
Not enough
a
minerals.
distorted memory, which it seems to be part of the story, and many of them that their memory is at least partially wiped and they come back very confused. Like, how many of those would take place before we would all know about it? I mean, they wouldn't have to do it that often. There's 300 million people, and they do it once a week.
Probably they will
Who's
not
gonna
rush this
know?
time.
Well,
How
again,
are you going to hear about it?
what's
Add
proof?
on.
Right.
What is the
Complete.
level of proof you know, for those cases? This phenomena is elusive.
Right.
It wants to show us glimpses of itself, glimpses of other realities, but it doesn't
Not
want us
enough
to be able to prove
minerals.
it. It's as if it's trying to tell us. It's like a learning curve, you know, that reality isn't what it used to be, that it's way more complicated than you might think it is. That's sort of like what we got out of the ranch, is that it's putting all these different weird phenomena together when you can't really prove any of them. It's trying to tell you something, so what can you learn from it?
What's your take on
Command
Willie
center
Stryker?
upgrade.
It's a mix. I think he's a brilliant guy, and I think he did have some experiences. I don't know that the experiences continued. You know, you get mixed signals from him. The fact that he is a great novelist,
Our
a
allies
horror
are being
novelist,
attacked.
Complicates it.
complicates it. He thinks about this stuff on a different level. You know, it used to be we all thought it saw that alien on the cover of his book, Communion, and figured it was a space alien from some other planet, and he's on a different level about what they like.
Our allies are being
In
attacked.
essence, gods. I mean, Jacques Vallée had said, if you can manipulate space-time, if you can create your own gravity, like the craft that Bob was talking about, you could be from other planets, other
allies
solar
are being
systems,
attacked.
other times. You could be time travelers. You could be from other dimensions, or all of the above. Dr. John Mack had
Our
suggested
allies
that
are being
abductions and these strange experiences suggest that we're part of a galactic neighborhood, a cosmic neighborhood, a multi-dimensional reality that we haven't got our heads around yet. And that it's important for our ultimate survival that we figure it
Our
out.
allies are being attacked.
George, I just, you know, George has been, remember, he was the journalist that broke stories,
Research
corruption stories, political
complete.
stuff. He just last year, these guys been doing it for 30 years. UFOs have been
Our allies are being
Of course, he's made lots of headway. Show like
Additional
but
supply
what he's doing
depots
now is
required.
kind of cool.
Insufficient
After 30
Thespian
years
gas.
of studying this and filming everything, dropping 1 minute in a news report, he has a Akashic record of everybody ever involved
Channel's
with
clear,
crazy
boss.
stuff throughout the last
Moving
30
into
years.
position.
He's dumping it all online.
Cyclone en route.
With all of his collective wisdom over the years of what could this fucking be, he is now starting to do this. So this is, for
Our
me, it's
allies
a very
are
exciting
being
time because,
attacked.
like, the Lazona news, there's so much more out there now that he had under his station
Where
under
do you
lock and
where do you keep that, George?
It's called MysteryWire.com. I work for KLAS. I'm still part of the I team, but since the beginning of the year, I'm focusing on producing new content, and
Additional
all this
supply
stuff that I've
depots
stashed
required.
at home and elsewhere is going up on there. Dr. John McAfee,
Adjusting for new
because I got to
coordinates.
interview him too while he's
You
still
got
alive.
coordinates or what?
What is this, Jen? What is that? New Area 51 program taken by private pilot?
Oh, that was pretty cool. Yeah, they flew over
What's
Papoose.
going
Like,
on?
you know, it's like
Are you
how-
allowed to do that?
No, you can get clearance to get by it and have a really good camera. But here's what's so funny: it's like people that aren't from this will never do this. They said, "Oh,
Not
there's new
enough
photos
minerals.
of Papoose Lake, and we don't see an installation." And I'm like, "Oh, you don't see an
Got a
installation
target in
that was
mind.
built to not be seen
Go ahead.
from the air." Okay, I mean, if people don't want to, you know, follow this shit or understand it, they're always gonna see whatever they want to see. You follow me?
Yeah.
Okay. Shit. I was in a vacuum there, and everybody looking at me
Yeah,
blankly. I was like,
Well, you're having an argument with someone who's not there.
"Oh, okay."
You know, you're like arguing with someone. Oh, you're not seeing it. Like,
yeah,
no,
it's
no
just,
one's
my,
here.
My point is just I can't bang my head against the wall because I don't know what the real truth is. But
George, was it a struggle to talk about UFOs and yet maintain a serious career as an investigative journalist?
Very much so. You know, I had the support of my news director and the station at the time, and you know they were encouraged by the reaction from our audience. It was big, and then it expanded and went all over the world. But I think they worried that I was going too far down the rabbit hole, so I had to be careful. I mean, for me, it is not my religion. I'm not chasing this because I've got a hole in my heart where God should be. It's a story. It's always been a story, and so I try to be careful and not commit to a position. It's space aliens, it's interdimensionals. I'm following what evidence there is. I'm listening to the witness testimony and trying to figure it out. And over the years, you know, I have been all over the
Not
world
enough
to
minerals.
chase this down. In the end, a lot of the answers and
Not
the best
enough
information
minerals.
was right in Las Vegas because of Bigelow and the organizations that he
Channel's
founded.
clear,
All
boss.
that expertise came right into my backyard, and
allies
Harry
are being
Reid
attacked.
being the sponsor to the program that became ATIP. I mean, I've been fortunate to be a fly on the
Mineral
wall
field depleted.
and to gain their trust. And you know, it's tricky because so many people find this crazy and ridiculous. And whenever I do a story, I'm not related to UFOs. It's about some politician or cops or
Adjusting for
something
new
like that.
coordinates.
And people are mad at me, which happens often.
Cyclone on
They bring up UFO. Oh, that's the UFO guy. How serious? But I've had the support of my employers. I'm thankful for that. And, you know, I get to be a little more creative on Coast to Coast because it's a 4-hour show and you can let people go.
What's
I don't
going
have
on?
to be judgmental
Yes, sir.
when I'm reporting as a regular news story. I have to be more careful about what I include in
Our
it. But,
allies
yeah,
are
we're
being
putting all that
attacked.
stuff up, and it's been a fun ride.
In
And there's a
the
lot of
rear
times I
with
just
the
want to
gear.
walk away from it. Like you, I get disgusted by it.
Yeah. Have you
Gotcha.
noticed in
Bad
your
news.
world, the world of investigative
Our
journalism,
allies
that
are being attacked.
attitudes and opinions have changed about UFOs?
Very much so. I think, you know,
What's that?
I'll go back to the New York Times story that changed so much. So I had known that stuff, and when I found out they were going to do it, I had known about the program that was underway. I said, hey, why don't I get to do this? Because I've known about all this time. I've kept quiet about it because that was my agreement. I'm going to do this story. They said, no, this is Bigelow,
Add-on
Senator Reid,
complete.
Tom DeLonge had asked me, don't do that. If you do it, the New York Times said
Mineral
they'll back
field
out.
depleted.
And so I sort of, I don't want to say took one for the team, but I realized I'm not the New York Times. They were gently letting me know I'm the UFO reporter. If I do
Our
it,
allies
nobody's going
are
to pay
being
attention to
attacked.
it. If the New York Times does it, then everybody does pay attention to it, and they did. They did that story. Then the Washington Post and
Mineral
Politico,
field
all the
depleted.
new networks did stories, press all over the world. It is now acceptable for reporters to dig into it. You have to be
Add-on
careful.
complete.
There are still liars and scammers out there who will mislead you, but there is information that can be pursued by reporters, and I think that's made all the
Not
difference. It
enough
made
minerals.
Congress
Add-on.
more comfortable with exploring it, and our world is different from than it was 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, I think the people
Not
that
enough
were in
minerals.
control of this stuff also
Not
in the
enough
60s
energy.
and 70s, they're not around anymore. So you're dealing with now people that are in government, involved in the military, that grew
Command
up in the
center
age of the
upgrade.
internet.
Not enough
And they have a
minerals.
different perspective
enough
about
minerals.
these subjects.
The free flow of information. They
Yeah.
see everything is there. Why is anything kept
Well, I
secret?
think
Command
the
center.
younger
Not
people
enough
just have a
minerals.
different perception about UFOs in general. I mean, I think that you're not dealing with post-1947 people that were talking about it back in the day, where they and also the attitude of the way the military and government interface with the public. I mean, they could come up with the most ridiculous deception. Like the Roswell case is one of my favorite
Upgrade
ones. I used to
complete.
have a bit about it, but how crazy it is that they say when they print it in the paper, we recovered a down saucer, and then the next day it's, oh, it was a weather balloon. Like you don't know the difference between a spacecraft from another
Not enough
dimension
energy.
or another planet, or a weather
Not
balloon
enough
that was made in
minerals.
Ohio.
Well,
Not
the same
enough
question
minerals.
now. Dave Fravor
Research.
doesn't know
Not
the difference
enough
between a
minerals.
Tic Tac and this weird
Not
craft
enough
and a
minerals.
seagull or something. You know,
Not
He
enough
won't
minerals.
engage those
Not enough
insane,
minerals.
arguments. He
Not
just won't do it.
enough
He's a fighter pilot. Doesn't give a fuck.
Not enough
Well,
minerals.
it's the other thing that he was
Not
talking
enough
about that we didn't really
minerals.
get to is that
Yes,
that
Commander.
thing not only was recognizing that he was
Our
there, but
allies
it was
are being
jamming.
attacked.
It was doing some sort of active
Not
jamming.
enough
right.
energy.
an act of war. This is the other paper I wanted to tell you about. It does mention aliens, so it is a recalculation of
Am I in
the.
trouble for having
No,
this?
they're not classified. It
allies
says
are being
unclassified. It just
attacked.
hasn't been
Fucking
released.
run out of this room right
Of
It
course.
just recalculates how likely it is there are alien
course set.
civilizations in our solar system or our
now. How
cosmos.
likely? So it's about the Fermi paradox?
It's
The
sort of
Drake
it's the Drake
equation.
equation. So they've done this years ago about.
Initiating.
They tried to figure out how many planets are out
Got
there, how many are
freedom?
inhabited. This is
Easy.
a reworking of the
As you say.
calculations, and again, I
Perfect.
can't read it.
Of
I became a
Defense
journalist.
Intelligence Reference Document
Yeah.
and Introduction
Insufficient
to
vesting gas.
Statistical Drake Equation.
Course set.
So this is something that
Initiating.
they created
Flight
for the
plan is
Defense
locked.
Department,
Yeah,
so
so-
that they could get an understanding.
Yeah, what the baseline of our
Moving into
information is
position.
about all
Full
those different
speed.
topics I told you about,
Perfect.
and then this one is
Easy.
how likely is it that we have galactic neighbors, and how close
As
might
you
they
say.
Yeah, the key question.
We
how
read you.
far are
Of course.
be? It comes to an
Moving
answer.
into position.
It
Full speed.
phases into that, but you're the
Course
first person
set.
outside the program
Flight plan
to
is
see it.
locked.
You better address
they?
those.
Sure, this is okay.
Easy.
Yeah,
It
it's
feels
okay.
like I'm gonna get visited.
Who called in the fleet?
You're
That's,
all right.
Yeah, well, how far do they think they are?
I have to-
We read you.
And again, I'm one of the
Got
reasons I
freedom.
become a
Incoming
journalist is so I
orders.
don't have to do math. So
Show me who you want to
Now that's happening is because of the New York Times article, and really because you had Bob on and Commander Favorite, people are talking about this in the
Insufficient
zeitgeist.
upgrade
I've
complete.
had more people, serious people,
Upgrade
come forward to
complete.
me in the last than ever before, and it includes soccer moms and it's people that just yes, ever since the Lazard documentary. The New York Times pulled it. I kept all that. People started to trust me with, hey,
Our
we keep his
allies'
mouth shut
base
if he needs
is
to.
under attack.
People have come forward to me in droves since the like soccer moms and people that just say, I don't want to be known.
Our allies base is under attack. Our
Everything you
allies
can
are
imagine
being
from seeing
attacked.
craft that are right there.
Base
abduction
is
stories
under
trying to get
attack.
into. But also very serious people that have worked or do work for the
Our
military.
allies
Say,
base
I
is
had
under
an
attack.
I know what the situation. I know George Bush. It's just
Our
new for me.
allies are
The-
our allies'
the
base is
amount
under
of people
attack.
coming forward to me and telling
Our allies'
me
base
a lot of
is
this stuff
under
is
attack.
bullshit.
Yeah.
But a good handful
Our
to
allies
discredit
are
it.
being
Discredit, yeah.
attacked.
You think, is that what you think?
Insufficient
Yeah.
It's just
gasping
crazy.
gas.
It's crazy because some of it might be the
Our
Eritrea
allies'
show,
base
Joe,
is under
said
attack.
when Bob was on. I get a little bit of
Our
the blowback
allies
because
are
we're
being
interested in the
attacked.
topic, but it's
Our
amazing how
allies are being
much of an
attacked.
impact it's had.
Vespine guys
to
are
kindle people's
exhausted.
interest, not only in that story, but in others, and then general. Says
Our
with a
SCVs
75%
are under attack.
probability
Our
the nearest
allies are being
extraterrestrial
attacked.
civilization
Our
is
allies'
located in
base is
between
under attack.
1361 and
Our
3979
allies
light
are
years
being
from us.
attacked.
So
Our
there
allies'
you go.
base is under attack. Our
And the way they
SCVs
travel, that
are
ain't
under
shit.
attack.
No, that's
And
lunch stuff.
And that's such
Our
the important
allies
part
are
of it.
being
Remember we were
attacked.
talking about non-reactionary
Our allies'
propulsion
base
systems?
is under attack.
Everybody, like 10 years ago, it was like, okay, the universe is vast, there's probably intelligent life forms out
Our
there
allies'
in
base
the
is
source of
under
the
attack.
universe, but they ain't coming here.
Base
Right.
is
But
under
then you look
attack.
at what Bob said and how gravity wave amplification would.
Course
you look
they
at the
did.
testing
Our
of, like,
allies'
Commander
base
Craven,
is
how those
under
craft
attack.
move. You see how the gimbal moves, and then you start thinking, well, distance doesn't matter. That's what I'm saying. Physicists
Mineral
were right.
field. Our
But hold on.
allies' base
Physics
is
has
under
changed
attack.
as our understanding of it. So now we're looking at a propulsion
Our
system
allies' base
where
is
distance
under
doesn't
attack.
matter. Man, that brings us all much fucking closer together.
Our
if any of this
allies
is true.
are being
Yeah, if any of
attacked.
this is true, this
Our
there was a lot
allies
of
are being attacked.
naysayers back in the day that were quote unquote how they
Our
traveled, like
allies'
Stanton
base
Friedman.
is under
He had
attack.
his hot potato theory, his short bursts, and but look, he didn't believe in Bob Lazar too, but I always felt like there was some weirdness there.
Big job,
Like,
Our allies are being
UFO
attacked.
guys and researchers are so used to this being full of shit that everyone but them is full of shit.
That's
right?
right.
And that's what I felt like with
Yes,
Stanton.
Commander.
When Stanton would discredit Bob's education
Insufficient
pass and all these
Vespine
different
gas.
things, I'd be like, yeah, but you know, just empty out all your predisposed notions of who the
Yes,
guy is
Commander.
and look at it. What if he's telling
Our
the truth?
allies are being attacked.
Like, what if he's telling the truth? Does that place actually exist? Area F? Yes. Does he have some weird knowledge of it? Yes. Did he really work at
Insufficient
Los
Vespine
Alamos Lab?
gas.
Yes. Did people who worked there remember him? Yes.
Our
Does he
allies
know
are
how to
being
navigate
attacked.
the building from the inside? Yes. Was there a fucking article in the newspaper where he built a fucking jet car
Not enough
and it said he was a
energy.
physicist at Los
Our
Alamos Lab?
allies are
Yes.
being attacked.
These things are piling up,
Not
Stanton. I
enough
wish you were
energy.
alive.
Yeah.
I wish you were alive. He was also
Our
obsessed with
allies are
UFOs,
being
but
attacked.
again, these UFO experts all believe that everyone else is full of shit.
I had a 20-year dialogue because he really plotted away. He really plowed around on the topic in general, perspective, but he had a blind spot about Bob. We had multiple face-to-face conversations and exchanged letters over the years.
Did you ever see one of these
Insufficient.
Yeah, I have
Our
said that to
allies
him,
are being
and he
attacked.
can't get beyond the college degree stuff. That's astonishing.
And did you bring up what this is about working at Los Alamos Lab and his education at MIT?
I did not tell him that story, but it would not have mattered because Stan didn't hear any of that stuff. All the things about how does he go out and know it's going to fly on Wednesday night and take friends out there 3 weeks in a row and then record it on
Right.
video?
Insufficient
Doesn't want to hear
Vespine
that.
gas.
Why not?
Just didn't hear it.
Why not?
He'd already made up his mind.
That's not good. That's
You're-
not scientific.
And I can understand, like, my emails and correspondences and texts are a dump truck for conspiracy. Like, everybody thinks I'm some fucking believer, and they can just hit me with, like,
Our
fucking
allies'
5G
base
COVID
is
stuff.
under
And I'm like,
attack.
Jesus Christ. And I try to push it. So it's people that actually know me, my friends, and George,
Our
too.
allies are
We're like
being
the
attacked.
person that's hardest to convince that your story has validity. We ask for documents, for military background. We vet people.
Right.
He vetted
Our allies'
Lazar.
base
I
is under
vetted
attack.
Lazar. It's not like we're sitting here, oh, we want this to be true. Tell us your story.
But do you understand that's why
allies
the
are being
Skinwalker Ranch
attacked.
thing does nothing for you?
I understand.
Yeah.
And I knew it
totally
would, yeah,
understand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just I don't see anything.
Yeah.
I see a dead cow.
Yeah, there were PhD scientists on that ranch for 20
Our
years.
allies
Part of the
are being
time working
attacked.
for the U.S. government, trying to figure it out. They would
Our
have
allies'
experiences.
base is under
They can't
attack.
document them. They realize that nobody's going to believe it. It was very frustrating, but
Yes, Commander.
they tried to look for a bigger picture of what it was trying to teach them. Why is these performances? And that's how they considered them like
Our
performances.
allies
They're
are
not
being attacked.
just UFOs popping in here just because it's a portal or something. They were showing glimpses of themselves for a reason, because if they didn't want us to see them, we
Our
wouldn't see them.
allies
It's
are
like the
being
Tic Tac.
attacked.
There's the Tic Tac sitting around.
Patching you through.
It's been there for a couple of weeks, zipping in and out. We can't quite get a radar. For a couple
Our
of minutes,
allies
and reacts,
are being
"Oh,
attacked.
is there somebody else here?"
Our allies
It
are
knew
being
that we were
attacked.
there. Given its capabilities, it wanted to be seen. But why?
That's the difficult thing is can you accept if
Our
this UFO thing
allies
is
are
real and
being
there are these
attacked.
intelligent facts, but can you accept
Our allies are
that
being
it
attacked.
is aware that we have cell phones,
Mineral
that it is
field
aware
depleted.
that we want to monitor it, and it's a tiny advantage. I don't care who it is, but if they're that advanced,
Insufficient
then we have
Vespene
to know
command center
that they
upgrade
are
complete.
aware of us.
Can we get it?
I mean, I have to accept that. Skinwalker, all that,
They're doing nothing to this species. They're almost 3-3. No, because they are 0-0.
I'm not going to exclude it. Investigate the unknown. Don't.
Our
So
allies are being
there might be
attacked.
some scary explanations ultimately that
Our allies' base
they live
is
here,
upgrade
that they can
complete.
see us and read our thoughts, and
Insufficient
we're in the
Vespene
shower and
gas.
we're sleeping and they're watching and
Our
they manipulate
allies
us
are being attacked.
on a micro
Our
and macro
allies'
scale
base is
that it's
under
their
attack.
planet,
Mm.
not ours. That we're
Can
that's
jump
scary.
every time.
The other thing
being
that's scary
attacked.
is what if we are totally we're the only life in anywhere,
Upgrade
but this is the only
complete.
inhabited planet. Some people believe it. I don't. That's pretty scary.
Base is
Yeah.
under attack.
It's the whole subject is such a weird thing because
Our
you spend a
allies
lot
are
of time
being
on it and you
attacked.
start thinking, why was my
Insufficient
precious
Vespene
energy
gas.
here on
Our
nonsense?
allies'
Like,
base is under attack.
but then you hear
Our allies are being base is under attack. Our allies are being Our allies' base is under attack.
Are they leaving spacecraft around? It's like, let me figure this shit out.
Like I said, throwing the cell phone into the monkey cage
Base
here.
insufficient attack.
And we
Our
see these
allies'
displays.
base, our allies are
If they
being
didn't want us to
attacked.
see them, we wouldn't. They have stealth. We can see them right there. Radar, but they're invisible.
You can only see them sometimes through thermal. So as
Sayama.
our military
Our allies' base is under attack.
UFO sightings are going
Our allies are being
compared to just
attacked.
flying.
But some of them don't display a thermal heat signature.
Our allies'
Don't know.
base is under attack.
We'd have to
Insufficient
if there's anything
Vespene
you can
gas.
imagine and more. This cop
Insufficient
called me
Vespene
a month
gas.
ago and he got in
They need to destroy the whole infrastructure. Mining and everything.
Our allies' base is under attack.
non-aerodynamic, something impossible. He
Our
saw something
allies are being
impossible.
attacked.
They come in
Our
all shapes
allies'
and forms.
base is
It's just that
under
as
attack.
we look more, we're seeing more technologies increasing.
Our allies
Our
are
government
being
and our
attacked.
scientists. I think the scientific community
Our
should engage
allies
with
are being attacked.
You have
Our
stuff to
allies'
study.
base is
Jim
under
Crow
attack.
recently said extraterrestrial craft is now on the scientific community because there's such a weight of evidence.
Correctly, Senator Reid had said that was one of the reasons he started the program. It's because he's had indications that those other governments are trying to figure out the same stuff that we're figuring out. And if some of us master that technology, the Russians get it, the Chinese get it before we do, we're in trouble.
Down and smack everybody.
Our allies are being attacked.
Doing 3 rounds on the UFO stuff. You know, what do you think?
I don't. That's the problem. I don't.
Insufficient
I just sit
Vespene
back
gas.
and I wait. You know, I think when you look at Fravors, what Fravor saw
Our allies are
clearly,
being attacked.
there's evidence.
Oh, really?
There's not just evidence that it was
Squadron en
jamming,
route.
tracking. There's them trying to figure out what it is. There's the incredible rate of travel
Not
where it can
enough
go
energy.
from 60,000 feet above the surface in
Our
like literally a
allies are being
second.
attacked.
And they don't even know how fast it really went because it takes a second for the radar read to register. That's that alone.
And no sonic
Mineral field depleted.
no sonic Before you were speaking back and forth on the topic.
Yeah.
So has George. George, I just set up this
Okay, nice, we got it.
Well, there's just so many
So-
people out there that have an interest in discussing it too.
Well, this is
They
our,
do
our
these
final
lectures,
score.
they
Our
tour,
final
and they
score
do these UFO
is, or my final
conferences,
score,
and they just get together with other bullshit
because I'm not
artists
playing so bad
and
as
make
me.
a living.
does happen.
That's a part of the
No,
problem.
10 games,
It's part of the
6
problem is
losses,
that
4
there's money
wins.
to be made in this, and you realize
It's
that
really
when you
bad.
interview these
Those
so-called
Batmans were
experts,
better, but I don't
you
know
sit
what
down and
happening.
talk to them. A lot of them are
In
just
like
they're knuckleheads.
from these
and
6
they don't
losses, I in
respond
4
very
games
well
got a
to
guy who
scrutiny.
like immediately disconnect, then
Luckily,
another
he's a
one.
journalist
Like,
with a day job.
I'm not
and,
at
you know,
that level that I can
I'm
play
just a
like 2
filmmaker,
versus
not
4.
just a UFO researcher.
But
okay?
okay.
But
I
you're
mean,
kind of
everything is fine.
obsessed. Let's be honest.
I will be here
I'm gonna
also
be
tomorrow
completely honest,
from
I
1:30
am.
a.m. Central European
How do you
time.
not
We'll
be?
play
How do you
also
not
some
be?
Aliens
It's
and
one of the
StarCraft.
most compelling subjects
So,
that the human
thank
race
you very
has
much
ever
for
known.
watching.
Are we alone?
Yes.
And if we're not alone,
Enjoy the
is-
day, take
is
care,
something
and see you on
as
the stream, guys.
advanced
See
to
you
us
from